Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is April the 29th of 2020. And, yes, so it is. It am.
It is. I feel like if I make my eyes really big, I can add a new level of intensity to this podcast that we've henceforth been missing. I don't know why. This is also a gag that only works to the people who are watching the video on Twitch, so I don't know why we're doing it.
Yep.
Nick, let's abandon this bit. Let's come up with a new one. All right.
In the trash it goes. It's gone.
Yep.
It's dead.
You're a green grocer. And
green grocer? What the fuck's a green grocer?
I think it's like a British grocery bag person. I'm not sure.
All right, then. I'm a grocer now, I am.
And I'm Robot Hitler.
What are you...
Guten Tag.
What the fuck?
Nick, come on. Yes, and.
What? How are we meeting exactly?
I am here for groceries. Cheerios.
Oh, so I am. Wait a minute, you're not British like me. You're a robot Hitler, you are.
Oh, no, I'm not. Just ignore the mustache and the SS uniform.
And the sparks flying out of my brain.
Those are unrelated. Or maybe I'm like Wolfenstein Hitler, where I'm in like a robot suit with like chain machine guns for arms.
You will allow me to. You will allow me to use this coupon for 50% off. It expired last week, Mr. Hitler.
I need directions to the butter, Nazi top kind, the butter stick kind, please.
You said Nazi top.
Oh, all right.
Right.
We got it, guys. Let's bring it home now. Podcast is wrapping up.
So we have manga to talk about this week. Both chapters that came out in the past several days, and even chapters that came out by this time last week. But we didn't have, regular weekly series to talk about. So we just kind of left them alone. So there are going to be one or two chapters here that you might be like, well, why are you only talking about that now? Well, that's because you didn't watch us do a tier listing for all the characters in One Piece. Yes, definitely all of them. Don't tell me there were any more than were in that long fucking list of characters that we had to just throw into I don't know who this is. So we recorded that last week instead of doing a regular episode. You can check that out. I believe the Twitch recording is available still. And yeah, so we've still got I think Spy Family and Boruto both came out last week that we're talking about. And we might do something else special next week because last week it was because Jump had to shut down for a week because of one of their employees getting sick. This week, however, is a regularly planned break because it's Golden Week in Japan. So again, no chapters. So we might do something else. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
We'll dig into the prop closet of Weekly Manga Recap go-tos on weeks where there's not material, and we'll dig out a very funny hat that we can entertain you all with. The funny hat being like a Q&A or something. I don't know. I kind of lost the analogy after a little bit, guys, but we'll have something.
We just have a hat that's kind of silly looking that we talk about for 2 hours. Yeah.
I get that big blue hat from back in the old days. I'm just
we analyze its history.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you know what? This is not the same blue hat as in that picture.
Yeah, this is a different hat, but I did purchase it after the fact because people wouldn't recognize me without it. Some would say it was the only lasting impression I had on that website. I legitimately, the other day, I tweeted about this, but I legitimately because I'm a big fan of Todd in the Shadow's work. I was
Mhm.
watching one of his videos,
Yeah.
and I got to an episode, and I cameoed in it, and I completely forgot that I cameoed in it, and I had to turn off the episode, Nick, and bury it and stop watching because I was like, nope, this is too shameful. I could never be exposed to this part of myself again.
Aw.
And then someone had the nerve to be like, you cameoed again later on. I was like, I don't remember that either, and I refuse to keep looking now. So I only follow Todd in the Shadows from like 2014 onward now. I know at that point his quality had risen to the point he stopped associating with us.
Oh. Oh boy. Todd's a really nice guy.
He's a great dude.
Yeah. Anyway. But I
Not like that Dick Benzai.
Can't catch me, fatty.
Spurs, you ends a Game of Thrones for me, you fucking prick.
No. Anyway, I was going to mention how like there are many things I don't remember from that era, but I'm just going to move on. We have manga to talk about, Chris.
We do.
All right. We're going to kick off with My Hero Academia, chapter number 269. Mirko's in really, really bad shape.
I must not have paid enough attention to this panel because it's currently the panel that's sitting like open in front of me. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is like, I know we kind of talked about like a couple weeks ago to Astad that pose that was like the new Yamcha pose. This is slightly worse than that. Like one hand almost seems to be up like, and then just like a portion of her ribs are gone and just bleeding out.
There are holes in her body. Like, it's really grim and gruesome to look at. I can only imagine that this is like one of those shots that like you see it show up in the anime and there's like a glow over the injured bits because they're so gruesome. So I can only imagine there's going to be some discretion when this gets adapted into the anime. But yeah, she's still of course missing her arm, but like part of her legs are like blown off. There's little holes in her body everywhere, and one of her ears is torn up and stuff. So Endeavor comes across her and he's like, I'm going to cauterize your wounds so you don't bleed out. Somehow she's still conscious and is still thinking about, what they've got to do while they're there as we kick off chapter 269, The Three of Us.
Just the three of us.
That's not how that song goes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. But the vicious female Nomu that has been fighting this whole time comes across them and tries to jump down towards them. As they're still fighting going on between the high-end Nomus and the heroes that are there. Turns out that Crust is apparently he's a crier, it looks like, because he starts crying as soon as he hears that Mirko's alive. He's like, oh, you're alive. It's like, okay, you're crying. Okay.
Well, they're best friends, Nick, obviously. Crust is a very important character with a lot of deep, interesting traits to him.
He summons shields from his body. He's so cool. Anyway, fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. We learn what not Cyclops' name is, Chris. He's the eye gun hero. Xless. Xless, not an X-Man, not an X-Man.
Yeah, I'm like, Xless. I mean, he doesn't even.
I don't get it. Does his real name have every letter in the alphabet but X?
That'd be a great name. I mean, it would reveal your secret identity really quickly.
My name is Zebediah Stephen Arbany.
Well, I'm also like, I could kind of, because he's got like kind of the sash over one eye, and you're like, oh, okay. But then he doesn't have the other side, so it doesn't make an X. And nothing on his costume looks like it makes an X.
Oh.
So I don't know what Xless means.
Maybe this is one of those like fan-submitted hero concepts like Bubble Girl was, where it's like you find out about that, it's like, oh, yeah, that's why that's a weird-looking hero with a weird name. So
what if he's Xless because he's never watched pornography in his life. Like, he's without exes.
He's the R max. He's the R at most hero. Excellence.
Yes. R at most hero excellence. He's like, I can also shoot eye lasers.
Well, yeah, but the fact that you've like literally never watched anything adult rated is kind of weird.
Like,
I mean,
not even accidentally or anything like that. Like, no, if I even think that a screen is going to show me pornography, I laser gun it before it can show me anything.
as soon as like anything resembling a saxophone starts playing, gone. Like,
I destroyed so many TVs back in the 90s when Val Venus was coming out.
hello.
No! Not today, Satan!
So many WWF pay-per-view events, I just had to, find out what happened the next night because in the middle of the card, TV blew up. I had to throw away so much money.
Such a waste,
I don't know why I kept on watching it, honestly. Oh, thank God those heroes. Thank God those heroes, the right to censor, showed up.
Yeah. Eventually they got...
He's like the one guy in the audience who's like, yeah, RTC!
Woo! I love this group. It's not lame at all.
You hear like the... He's like, yeah, it's my jam!
Was there ever a reason for why Bulk Buchanan joined it? Like, the
From
Godfather
what I
became the
understand.
Good Father. Val
Right.
Venus was to remove the porn star gimmick. And in my mind, I'm always like...
Ivory got indoctrinated too.
In my mind, I always think... And then Billy Gunn was in the group, and I'm like, no, they just
made more sense. Yeah,
they just beat him and made him change his name from Mr. Ass. He didn't actually join the group, and I'm like, but there was a fourth one, and they're like, yes, the hidden blind spot in WWE history, Bull Buchanan.
I think he won a tag team championship while he was with them.
But it feels like he's just so much of a part. Like, you always forget. You're like,
He's
remember when
always
John
the-
Cena used to hang around with him and he called himself B
yeah.
Squared? And you're like,
Yep.
yeah, now I do. Holy shit.
He was brought in as Big Boss Man's apprentice, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was part of what were they called? The Truth Commission. That was it.
Don't
Yeah.
even know it.
Anyway, Bo Buchanan's story was apparently in a random interview segment. He said that just because I've got kids at home and daddy doesn't want to feel ashamed of the company that he works for, so he decided to fix it so that he could look his children in the eye. Yeah.
That's the lamest reason to join the group.
Because I was a pimp and then realized I was wrong is a way better reason than because it's bad and I wanted to not be bad. So,
Terrible.
Anyway,
we're on page 5 of the first manga we're talking about this week.
Anyway, Bo Buchanan had an awesome theme song. All right, so Exless is there. There's fighting with the Nomu that's going on, and meanwhile the heroes are saying to each other that they need to go and stop Shigaraki from reviving. Aizawa's going to stay and deal with the Nomu because otherwise they'll get their quirks back and run roughshod over the heroes. So it's up to President Mike, as Dr. Ujiko is going to, put in the important data chip or whatever to complete the revitalization process or whatever. President Mike shouts really loudly and shatters the tank. Shigaraki's body comes pouring out with all the water inside of it. A bunch of the machinery gets fucked up. And then he just starts rushing towards the doctor, and he gets a flashback where he thinks about how he and Aizawa were planning to go together in order to do something about this and, try and preserve that naive dream they had as kids. And so President Mike's like, now to find out if you're the real doctor or another double. And he fucking punches Ujiko across the face, and it's a really satisfying image. DJ punch! Because, I've got sound powers and I shout really loudly, but regularly punching someone, that's got a technique name too.
Yep.
Ujiko is knocked to the ground, of course. Crust goes over and checks on Shigaraki, who sees that he's basically dead. His heart has stopped and he's not breathing. And Ujiko explains that he is in a death-like state to better withstand the burden of the process. And he starts to freak out and cry because I've only been living for the boy's sake, for Shigaraki, but now it's over. It's all over. The Lord of Evil's dream will die. How can you think you're on the right side when you refer to your boss as the Lord of Evil? It's like one of those like He-Man things, like only evil will triumph. It's like, why are you saying?
Why
evil?
you guys consider yourselves evil? Don't most villains see themselves as the heroes?
I have a skull for a face. But all the rest of the heroes from outside are charging in. More heroes show up to deal with the remaining Nomu, and it seems as though the heroes are on the brink of beating the bad guys. But Shigaraki and, as we cut over to him in his prison, All For One, both seem to be grinning. So, ooh, what do they have up their sleeve? What's gonna happen with Shigaraki, Chris?
You know, Nick, I'm going on a limb. I'm going to say Shigaraki's not dead. I think he might actually still be alive.
Well, he said that he's in a death-like state, so presumably he's just comatose. But
I bet he's coming back. I'm going to go out. Nick, take this bet to the bank. You go out to your local bookie right now, who's of course taking manga-related bets, and you say, Shigaraki's not dead. I'm betting my life savings on it.
I mean, I wouldn't bet my life savings on it, but okay.
Just for like the one time Orko, she's like, no, I decided not to do the obvious thing.
No! But my apartment.
My home.
So, yeah. It's a very basic, just, action-heavy chapter, mostly featuring characters that I really don't care about. But hey, it was really satisfying when President Mike punched that dude in the face. I'll give it that. So,
yeah, I'm getting a little tired of Ukyo gets beat up being kind of like a big emotional point in chapters. It's happened for like a month straight, so I'm kind of looking forward to the big stuff happening.
And I'm much less interested in this side of things than I am in the stuff involving Hawks, because that has like the characters that we're way more familiar with. So yeah.
Yeah.
Actage.
Hey.
110 advertisements.
I like the color page, like the title page, because I thought, and I guess I was mistaken, I thought she was bringing the Zack Ryder pants back into style.
When the one pant leg,
one long leg, one short leg, or the Ruby Riot, I guess, style as well.
Now that she's employed and he isn't.
Yeah, I guess that's the one to go with.
He's like, I didn't wear those tights for like 10 years. Like, it's still the Zack Ryder pants.
I'm like,
you'll never escape this.
Anytime I see one, that's immediately, I'm like, oh yeah, like the woo 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 guy. That's what he wore.
So they're shooting a commercial. Kay and little girl whose name I still haven't memorized. But even though they've shot the commercial, and the director seems pretty satisfied with the first take, they're like, "All right, good." But Kay's like, "I mean, this isn't working for me though. I don't get this. Why am I running? Why am I upset? Why does drinking the water make me feel good?" And I will say, Chris, this was actually probably my favorite chapter of Actors that we've read while doing the recap of it, because she's basically just like, man, commercials don't make sense, dude. Outside of we're pitching this product, it's like, what is this narrative you're telling? Who is my character? And it's like, we don't care. Go out and back them. But that's not how I act, though. And I do appreciate that this is a thing that Kay could not have done at the beginning of the series because she didn't have enough clout. She would have just been fired,
Yeah.
But because she's she's the one that the producers want for this, and she's got, they've got to deal with her artistic eccentricities, and that's it. And so it's something they have to actually manage, and they can ask these kind of questions and stuff. So Kay's trying to get some better direction. She's trying to figure out what kind of aim should I be, what am I trying to accomplish with all this and stuff. And she, says to the director, like, you approved that take, so why? What's going on? And Arisa eventually gets frustrated. And she's like, look, the director's word is absolute. Just do as he says. And Kay's like, all right, I'll rethink my character. Director, tell me what you were feeling when you came up with the story. And the director's like, well, I didn't come up with the story. Our company did. So, there's just a bunch of people basically threw a bunch of, of the tags for a successful commercial into a blender and churned it out. And that's how it was made. And so Kay realizes, well, how am I supposed to empathize with that, though? There's no person who can tell me what the fuck I should be feeling or trying to do. But she says, I'm sorry, I can't give a performance that doesn't make sense to me. And Arisa says, your personal feelings on the matter are not our concern. You have to deliver the performance you're asked of as a professional. That's what it takes to be a star of the masses. But we get a flashback from Arisa's perspective of Akira complaining to her, my cheeks hurt from smiling for the cameras all day. And basically, if you want to be a star this way, you gotta fake it. You gotta fake that enthusiasm and fake that happiness. That's what being a Hollywood star is like, Chris.
Yeah.
And Kay's just like, it sounds like you want me to be a mechanical doll. Which is like, yeah, kind of. They want her to just do the thing the way I want it to be done, basically. But Arisa says that she actually wants her to learn how to fight in this world. And she says, hey, what's the purpose of a commercial? It's an advertisement. It's to introduce something to someone. Kay realizes when you want other people to enjoy something you love. So my job is to get people to enjoy something, i.e. the water, that I love. So she takes a drink of the water right there, and she's like, this is kind of bland. I don't like this water. It's not very tasty.
What? All right.
I don't know what the fuck they're doing to this water.
I'm like, how do you fuck up water? I don't.
And again, I have had vitamin water that's flavored. Like I remember that. Okay, so I used to work at a ballpark, Chris.
Yes.
For only about a summer. And oftentimes we would eat like right before going down into the the actual proper stadium area to work. And so there was this cooler in the AV booth where I worked, and it was full of soda, and like the only non-soda in it was like vitamin water. Dragon fruit flavored vitamin water.
So I feel like it is gravely a crime to call that water. Like, you have to call that Gatorade, right? Like, Gatorade doesn't brand itself as water generally. I know there's some versions they probably do. Ugh, dragon fruit flavored water? Yeah. Ugh. That sounds absolutely horrendous and unpleasant.
And yeah, I mean, it is just like Kay says in this, sweet and sour and kind of bland. Like I tried it a couple of times and I was like, I should just drink the soda because, like, I mean, I can't be drinking quote unquote water that's making me go ugh every time that I drink it, even if it's like better at hydrating than soda is. So
it's also one of those things too where that water is probably super bad for you. It's super.
Yeah. I mean, I've switched from drinking any soda to drinking tea. I'm still very much aware that there is caffeine and sugar in this. There's just not as much. So, so Kay thinks to herself, all right, I have to learn to love this product as part of developing my character so I can actually shoot this commercial. And the director's like, I mean, you don't need to do that. So Kay says, well, who came up with Share Water, this product we're trying to sell? Like, when I cook, I imagine the people I'm cooking for. So I would like to understand the intent of the person who made this. Why didn't they make it tastier? So they're like, I mean, the product was made like 40 years ago, so they're retired now. I don't know. And she's like, and Arisa speaks up and says, please call them. Get the developer on the line so that Kay can talk to them. And they get the developer on the line, and Kay's speaking to them, and she's like, "Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm an actor. We're on location shooting a commercial for your product. The thing is, the water's not very tasty." The person like starts laughing immediately. And so there are producers there who are like, "What should we do?" And but Arisa says to the little girl Satsuki, pay close attention to this. And she thinks to herself, an actor who can't lie has stepped into the acting arena. You're going to encounter a lot of contradictions, confusion, and roadblocks. You and I will learn how to fight together so that no one's cheeks hurt anymore. So like I said, I actually really like this chapter.
Nick, this is a fantastic chapter of Act Age. No, wait, no, I'm sorry. This is the dumbest chapter of Act Age I've ever read, Nick. I'm going to start with this saying.
Our paths diverge.
I felt so... I am incredibly lame. I am incredibly lame, and I hate myself. I was reading this chapter, and I actually legitimately really liked it. I liked Arisa saying, like, hey, look, and she's trying to help, where she's like, hey, commercials are basically just recommending something to someone else. So if you need to imagine, why would you do all this stuff? Imagine that you're recommending this to somebody, and that's your go-to. And I was like, that works. It's a good way for her to function her method acting that's not like dangerous or cruel. I'm absolutely for it. And then Kay's like, can we get the creator of Water on the line? And the moment that it wasn't immediately, no, get off this set, you're fired. You turn the page and they're like, hello, Mr. Water. I audibly scoffed. Like, I was like, and I just like I audibly scoffed alone in my room to myself. And I was like, that's the lamest thing I possibly could have done. But I was just like, this is the dumbest thing I'm reading.
I think that part of it is a really weird thing, but I think it's worth it for her to say to the person who made to the product, yeah, I don't like it. It's not very good. Why are you laughing? So, I think that it is fun that we have a more minor thing going on, but that also deals with an issue that Kay, as eccentric as she is going to have to deal with if she's going to be an actor. Because acting is, when you break it down, lying. It's performative lying. It's pretending. It's playing pretend. And sometimes you can pretend something that you really believe in, but sometimes you just don't have that option. What's going to happen if someone ever looks at Kay and is like, you would make a really, really awesome bitch, in a story. And she's like, well, I would never act this way, though. There's nothing in this person's life that would make them act this way. So why would I do this? It's like, well, that's because that's so that's a challenge for her. And, it is said that, among salesmen, those who are best at their jobs are those who actually really believe in the product they're trying to pitch to someone. So the fact that Kay has been asked to do that, and it's for a product that she really doesn't believe in, is something. And I kind of wish that had honestly just been the first challenge that she came up against. Like when they're doing a take of the product, they're just shooting the commercial, and she drinks it. She's just like, it doesn't taste good. And that's like the beginning of the troubles. I think would have been a better way of doing this. But I actually really like this, and I am glad that, as we mentioned at the beginning of it, this is not a matter of like she has to delve into her deep-seated feelings of hatred that she's buried and stuff like that. So,
the only thing I'll say, this is the only time, for the most part, I've generally been pretty okay with Kay, but this is the only chapter where it's like, this is making me hate Kay as a character. I'm like, you're so like, can you do nothing? Like, I don't understand how you're an actor if there's no level of imagination possible in your mind to let you like pass something once you get the method down. Where she's just like, I can't possibly tell people water is good if I don't generally like the taste. I'm like, but you got the line in. You're just recommending it to whatever.
Anyway, so let's move on to Spy Family, Mission 25, Little kid politics are going on, Chris.
That's yeah. I remember my kindergarten being pretty cutthroat as well.
I mean, it could be, certainly.
Might be. I blocked out a lot of stuff from my childhood.
That's that's definitely only a positive sign. Anya's going to school, and I like some of the narration that we get from Anya as she is still trying to get to enact mission, try to get along with Scion Boy for world peace, and she says stuff in the narration like, "Fear not, gentle reader, my battle for world peace continues. For the sake of my mission, I have brought a secret weapon." And so they got a family photo taken, and so it has Bond in it. And she's like, "Oh, but this, I can use that as an excuse for Scion Boy to get a glimpse of it, and then we could have our dogs compete, and then I'll visit him, and we'll get along, and the mission will be a success." And she's like, "Oh no, I just dropped this super cool picture of my dog. Gosh, I am so clumsy." And they're just all the boys are just completely ignoring her, and her friend Becky's like, "Oh, Anya, you dropped a picture. Oh my God, your dad's so hot." Like, it does the whole thing where her pupils turn into hearts and stuff. So I guess we learned a little something else about Becky's personality.
Yeah, she's real horny for older men.
Mm-hmm.
She's into that dad hot.
I guess that Lloyd is a very traditionally handsome guy, so
sure, why not? He's got everything.
If that's his real face.
Yeah. And they got like such a cool dog. Yeah, I can see why it happened.
But they go to class, and it's arts and crafts class time. Blah, blah, blah. With who is it? Henriksen?
Hendrickson?
I think that's the older, distinguished, elegant gentleman. And so he says that they're all going to be creating 3D models of animals for this. And it's also said that they're going to basically, if they do really well, they'll get to earn a prize. Hooray! I think it'll be put on display. I forget. I'm trying to skip through it. Anyway, of course, Anya and Damien end up at the same table. Who could have possibly foreseen this event? So Anya's new plan to try and initiate a dog conversation is to try to make a cool model of Bond, fucking bug, out of the art supplies. Becky makes a cardboard human in the style of Lloyd, of Anya's dad, and like, oh, okay, and Henderson's like, the theme of the project is animals, though, and Becky just says, "Master Henderson, human beings are animals," and Henderson's like, she's got you there.
She speaks the true.
So he just leaves her alone. But then Becky destroys the project anyway because she's like, "He's way more handsome than this, though." So Anya finishes her model of Bond. It's not very good because Anya is not good at basically anything, it seems. And she puts the really weird model in front of Damien and is like, "His name is Bond." And Damien's like, "Do you always name your garbage?" Which is the most cold fucking thing.
He's so ruthless. He cuts so deep.
So Anya's upset. Damien's friends ask him what he's making, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a griffin for my family crest." He's like, "Oh, this, I've got to make it good. If I make it really good, then maybe my father will be proud of me." And so he's like, "Yeah, that's gonna go." But Anya's like, "I could help him make his griffin, and then we'll start to actually get along." And she imagines, she kind of like tags onto Damien's fantasy of his dad being proud of him. Like, "Oh, what if he introduced me, and then we'll be friends, and we'll go, aha, Operation Dog has become Operation Griffin." So she volunteers to help Damien make the project, supplies him with there's fucking bug, I will kill it. So I nearly died when I was 1 because of insects. Don't judge me. So
I'm not. I'm here to support you. I'm gonna punch the next bug I see.
awesome. So
Oh no, it's on my mother's face. But I promise, Nick, take this, Mom.
very important that you do this for me. Okay, so uh, Anya offers all the paper that she's got left, and Damon's like, "Well, just fucking focus on your own model." And Anya's like, "Oh, I'm already done." She's very confident in her Bond model, I guess.
She should be. It's an excellent masterpiece.
So, um, so Damien's like, "Oof, oof, fine," and Becky's like, "Oh, I get it. Ooh, oh, love Master Becky. Yeah, has got a mistaken impression about Damien and Anya's relationship, as I'm sure much of the readership for this manga does." Uh, so they're getting a little bit of help putting stuff together. Unfortunately, Anya gets the idea instead of making wings for the Griffin to make jet engines. She is 6. Uh, and so Damien gets upset about this. And is like, "Oh, it's everything here is ugly and mismatched. It doesn't have enough feathers to fly." He starts yelling at her. She starts to cry. Henry Henderson is like, "That was not elegant, and how dare you? You're not acting like a gentleman." Uh, but Damon's upset because now this means that the Griffin is unsalvageable, and he's like, "This isn't good enough." Um, so Anya goes over to him and is like, "I'm sorry, I couldn't help you. Here, you can have this to make up for the wings." And she is like patched on a little ridge for the wings and is like, "Here, I turned it from a dog into a girl griffin, and now maybe you can pair with yours." And he's like, "Well, what do I need a second griffin for?" "Because if they have love, they can soar through the sky." Aw.
Yeah.
So Judge comes by, looking at all the different projects that have been made and stuff, comes to Damien's horrifying looking griffin, and the little baby griffin that Anya made, and Damien gets notification that his art project won first prize. Henderson explains, "They described your griffin as standing proud despite plucked wings, and it served as a powerful vision of our nation as it rebounds from war." Okay, then. They said they struggled to hold back tears at the symbolism of the cruelly slaughtered baby griffin you placed beside it. And so Anya's like, "Aha! Well, now your parents will be proud." And Damien's like, "I'm not going to show it to my parents." So Operation Griffin has failed. Poor Anya. Damien goes home, contacts his butler Jeeves, because of course his butler's named Jeeves.
Why wouldn't it be? All people who have butlers, their butler's named Jeeves. It's just scientific fact. If you're named Jeeves, you're destined to be a butler.
And while he's contacting him from the boarding house, he is asked by his butler if he's going to return for the holidays. But Damien says no. Father's not even going to be around, is he? And so he's just going to study and stuff. He starts to mention arts and crafts, but then he just trails off. And then he says, "Hey, that thing at orientation where Anya punched him in the fucking face. They told Father about that, right? Did he ever say anything?" And Jeeves like, "Yes, of course. He was very concerned for your well-being." And Damon's like, "Oh, okay. Thanks. I better go." And he thinks to himself, "You liar. I know Father couldn't care less about me." And he thinks as he goes to rejoin his friends, if I want to please him and earn his respect, I have to be perfect. I have to become an imperial scholar. And then Henderson looks at the Griffins and is like, "What? Why? Really? Okay."
Am I so out of touch?
No, the judges must be wrong.
It's a fun little chapter. There's not a ton to really like latch onto or really think too much about. But I do enjoy it. There's a couple like silly jokes that are fun, and I guess we're getting more to Damien. It's a little disappointing. It's kind of as straightforward as the story tends to always be with this sort of character archetype, but it could still be executed very well.
For such an off-the-wall series as this, he's a very basic character archetype. But yeah, and it is nice to see, Anya's school cast getting a little bit of expansion, because not just Damien but Becky got a little bit of expansion to her character as well. So
Yeah. She's hot for DILF.
Evidently, yes.
Oh, Nick, let's talk about Boruto.
Boruto.
Or we could not, because it's kind of one of those weeks.
It not a lot really happened in this, did it?
I'm really like, this is an extremely long chapter, just filled with dialogue. It's almost nothing but dialogue for the most part. And I mean, I guess it's significant because this is explained with the Shuki, whatever their name is. Otsutsuki. It's kind of explaining them and what they're all about, and the Odorukis and all that stuff. It's just, God, it's really long, and it's just so much.
And honestly, like, there's not a whole lot that we actually learn from this, because it's more just what characters learn from this about, like, oh, well, this person is possessed by Otsutsuki, and this person is possessed by Otsutsuki. Okay.
It's as though Kishimoto finished, like, he's like, God, Samurai 8 wrapped up. Do you mind if I write a chapter report? Fill the time?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kishimoto. Then at the end of it, or about halfway through, there is a confrontation between Jigen and Kashin Koji, and they start to fight as Kashin Koji reveals that he's trying to betray him, and Jigen tries to kill him by stabbing him from behind after shrinking down, and he shoves a bunch of like the rods through his torso, but then Kashin Koji disappears in a puff of smoke because he used a shadow clone, and he just pops up a few feet away and is like, my motive is simple. I have no interest in the chakra fruit. That was the big thing, the chakra fruit. But we knew about that from the end of Naruto anyway, so I'm not going to bother going into detail about that. And he says, from the beginning, I was created to kill you. Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
Yeah. Hey. Instead of talking about this chapter, Nick, let's talk about the very exciting news that our favorite series is going to be returning a little bit, as Boruto is going to be getting a crossover with Samurai 8. And the world cheers for finally the most ambitious crossover in media history is finally going to happen.
How the fuck do you think that they're actually going to do that? Do you think it's just going to be like on the others, just like on one of their many travels, just come to the planet where Konoha and all of them are, and they're like, yeah, you guys are just a little speck on a fucking dust ball amongst many dust balls flying through the stars, and I could blow up this planet if I wanted to. So
it's gonna be so weird if they do that, because how do you accomplish that without making Naruto's world now feel small and lame? So here's what I'm quietly hoping for. It's a normal chapter of Boruto until the very end, and we see that they're preparing a rocket ship, and a family walks up with a baby, and they're like, Jesus, this thing won't shut up, and they slam it, and they're like, see you later, send the silent, and they send him into space. And it's sort of like Jacko at the very end. You're like, oh, it's Dragon Ball. Like, you see the baby flap in the air, and you're like, I get it now.
So,
but they didn't give the baby any food or anything like that. They were really trying to put an end to it. But you know him. You can't put a good guy down.
I mean, that was their problem, though. Like, I mean, if they had fed it, then his mouth would have been busy instead of fucking explaining things all the time, explaining things wrongly. I think that what they're gonna do is they're gonna show like a fight with one of the Otsutsuki, and they're going to have Kaguya's dimension hopping ability, and they'll be done like, well, I could have just brought you into the acid dimension, but I decided to bring you here. And they bring them to the dimension where Samurai 8 takes place.
like, for what purpose though? Like, for the characters to
Because Chris, it's so dangerous and there's different stuff. See, it's way less dangerous. It's way more dangerous than if they just took them to the world that consisted entirely of acid.
but like, it's one of those things too where you're like, how the fuck do you cross them over? Like, you can't make it a cameo. This isn't like fucking Wild Force meeting SPD, and you're like, oh, okay, well, these two worlds were just collide. That combination, I don't think even happened, did it? No, the season afterwards didn't have it. SPD never showed up with somebody else. That's right. But it's like, you can't just be like, these are two different genres, but they're close enough that they'll work. You can't just be
the
like,
fact that you knew that off the top of your head
means I'm very cool is the end of that sentence, I believe. But it's one of those things where you're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, how you can't just make Naruto a world that exists firmly in one planet and then combine it with something like fucking Samurai 8, which is like a galactic world, like space hopping adventure. That'd be like Indiana Jones crossing over with Star Wars. Like, you can't really have them meet for too long without being like, well, you're wasting one or you're making the other feel really tiny in comparison.
Some things are just not meant to go together, is what you're saying.
I don't know. I guess we'll see how it is. Also, as everyone in chat saying, I did get it wrong. It's SPD and Dino Thunder didn't get a crossover, which was a real shame. Those were two good seasons.
Also, I don't think Operation Overdrive had a crossover episode. It was just they did it in Samurai.
Well, they did. They didn't have a crossover episode, but they did have the every like 20 years of Power Rangers episode, the one where like Adam shows up and they got Blake, I think was his name, from SPD. They had like 5 Rangers come together to form like an impromptu team, and it was like Adam was there, the Black Power Ranger.
I thought that was Mystic Morph. I thought that was Mystic Force.
No, Mystic Force.
That did that.
No, it was an Operation Overdrive, because I watched that, like, I think it was a 2-parter, and I just remember sitting the entire time being like, this.
Oh, RPM was what I was thinking of.
Oh, RPM. RPM didn't do anything because they tried to pretend they weren't Power Rangers for the most part.
Right.
They're like,
Operation Overdrive. The Operation Overdrive was the one where everyone was a dick.
Yeah.
So.
And the theme song sucks. Fight me on it. No one's gonna fight me on it. This is a universal fact. Operation Overdrive has the worst theme song.
I used to think RPM was a lame theme song, but it really grows on you. So
I need to try. I started watching it at one point and then I stopped. And I don't know. It's one of those ones that's like on my docket to like jump back into. Also, all right. Hold on. I will say I'm very excited because I saw this. Avatar: Last Airbender is coming back to Netflix, so I'm going to be able to actually finish Avatar: The Airbender.
Nice.
All right.
Good series.
We got 2 chapters of Eden Zero to talk about, Nick.
Oh, we do? Okay, that would be why I was so confused in this one. I was like, that fight ended quickly.
So we have 2 chapters to talk about. We're going to start with chapter 91, Hamura versus Sylph. And
what happens in this one, Chris?
Well, we're going to get to that. First, we had to talk about Pino's analysis of herself, where
I haven't actually read this first chapter because I just read the latest one when I was catching up on it.
It's not too bad. Pino thinks very poorly of herself, with the exception of thinking she's very smart and also a rabbit? ? It's kind of a weird analysis. So yeah, Sylph and Hamura are about to fight, and as many people have pointed out, you can mostly sum up these chapters with wind, fight, wind. It's really annoying. However, it's a little overblown because I will note, when Hamura talks about wind, it's not really an issue. She's actually literally talking about the wind that is attacking her. Sylph, on the other hand, uses wind as a fucking metaphor for anything, I guess. I don't know. So it's very exhausting.
She's like a Smurf, but with wind.
Exactly. So Sylph is making her wind suck up all these things. It's like dropping a bunch of debris and cars. Hamura's like, gotta dodge it. They, of course, dodge directly into the dance club where Sylph is posed as a dancer. Like, she has the full-on like leg wrapped around the pole thing. And I'm like, Why? I don't.
Well, Chris, we learn after this that she has a chip, that she has chips embedded in her head, which cause all of her emotions to be subdued. So, because she has no emotions, she does this entirely pointless gesture.
I guess so. It is very. You're like, seems like this is a waste of your time. Also, for a character who's completely emotionless, I can't understand why you would feel the need to do a like entertaining pose appropriate to the setting. But whatever. We go over Sabir. Basically, it has the whole conversation with the other characters off screen, and they kind of connect there. I'm honestly, I don't know why they brought Sabir back. I guess as a way to show he's still alive, but
And also still a good person as opposed to being evil or something. Yeah.
yeah, something like that. He does explain. Fuck, I forgot about this. This is the dumbest fucking thing. All right, so he's like, well, I had to do all this because of money that belonged to DJ Zombie. And I don't remember
DJ
if they
Zombie?
brought up DJ Zombie before. But they're like, DJ Zombie? Yeah, what did he do? You're like, well, DJ Zombie found out about the money you had taken, Wise, and he cut off your right arm. It was a punishment for stealing. And you stopped acting out after that. People even came to see you as a respectable professor. And they're like, oh, really? Tell us more about them. He's like, well, DJ Zombie was a successful loan shark on the planet Gilst. And they're like, wait a minute. DJ Zombie, a loan shark on Gilst? That sounds like, yes, Draken Joe, a.k.a. DJ Zombie.
Okay, so like I said, I hadn't read this chapter until just now.
This part.
The shot of Draken Joe, like with full like I'm evil with this beard and stuff like that, but then with headphones pushing back, and he's at his freaking turntables and stuff with the hoodie. It's like it doesn't go with your face, dude.
You made the character look so much lamer by being like, yes, the ancient moneylender, who also in his part-time DJ for a bit, I guess. All right, yeah, we'll get to this a little bit later. I was trying to remember because there was a point I had about this chapter, and now I remember it, where it feels like we just constantly rewrite Draken Joe's character week to week. But yeah, so Draken Joe Zombie, aka DJ Zombie, aka I guess that explains why he's undead. They just mentioned like, oh wow, so maybe he wants Rebecca's powers so he could jump back in time a bunch so he can get his younger body back.
She has seen him naked. She knows how good of a physical specimen he is. He's not at death's door. He has alchemy powers.
Maybe it's all an illusion. You can just use alchemy to make it look like you have a rocket bod and super cool guys. Every time, it's just reminding that they were like, Draken Joe, DJ. What if he was an actual DJ and went with it? And it's so fucking lame, man. I don't know how you buy into that character now.
This arc was so much better when we knew nothing of what was going on.
I hope like the next chapter's like, he likes to crochet and he's awesome.
It's like, it's Draken Joe in his DJ Zombie outfit, grinning evilly while he knits a scarf.
He's like, and he was at one time a professional skateboarder because he's very cool. And you see him like doing a kickflip and they're like, yes, that's why he has the elemental four. The four elements as the four wheels on a skateboard, like, or some shit
and
like that.
And then it's an air gear thing.
Like, shit! He's following the element road! God damn it, it's back!
Next chapter, Sylph's like, if only there were a screw to stop this wind.
And then her clothes blow off. So...
Like, I'm not sure if that would have been... If they would have blown off normally if she hadn't said that, but okay.
So... Sylph is like, we cut back to the fight with Sylph, and she says, the wind's color has changed. And I guess that's Homura saying that. I don't know how wind really has color to it, but I guess it does now. And Sylph basically uses the attack, and it cuts through Homura's sword. And the explanation for this is, I raised my wind's quality level by 1, which I guess is a thing you could just do. Don't know why she hasn't been doing it from the beginning. But hey. And Homura's just like, I guess I'll do the same. I don't know. She just basically is like, all right, I'll create my own wind. And does it. I forget how meaningless this exchange is. I guess, no, nothing comes as a result of it. Anyway, let's move on to the next chapter, chapter 92.
The only one of the element 4 that is at all interesting is Laguna.
Yeah.
Because A, his power set is a little more interesting, and B, there is an intent seemingly to keep him around. So anyway.
So let's talk about chapter 92, the Sword of Edens. And now we get Pino's analysis for Homura. And she is very high attack and defense, but her marksmanship is low. And
she doesn't shoot. She just slashes it. So.
Also, low-key is kind of like, she's kind of a dum-dum. I mean, only 2 intelligence. I guess it's because she says what she's thinking out loud, but...
That's probably it, honestly.
I don't know. But her...
Chris...
her Yamato fashion is fucking through the roof. It's 5-star. It's the best rating anyone's gotten, really. It's actually...
Wearing kimonos, I guess.
Yeah. I guess her fashion of never wearing pants, per se. So, because her wind was absorbed, Sylph is freaking out now. She's screaming, Drakenjo, who absorbed me. I don't want to get absorbed. I'm scared. And then, as you mentioned, a little bebop robot is like, boop, emotion detected. Executing a motion suppression protocol. And you see Sylph go from being like, and then back to being stoic.
And then she gets on the pole and is like,
yeah. Let's do it, round 2.
Does Hiro think that pole dancers don't have emotions?
Who knows? Maybe. You
Maybe.
know? I feel like that's a very weird thing to say. Pole dancing doesn't even have to necessarily be sexual. It's an art form, just like many other forms of dance. So that's, I think, why it's so odd that a character who expresses nothing would be the one to be posing on a dance pole, but so be it.
You know, because she has no emotions, Chris, she can paint, for example, incredibly deep, effective works of art. Because only the best artists out there have no emotions.
Well, if Act Age has taught me anything, Nick, it's that suffering for your art is a requirement. So perhaps all of the trauma she's experienced.
But she doesn't suffer. It's suppressed, Chris.
Yeah. So they have to unleash that if she's going to want to be, she's going to want to be a good actress or whatever. Sylph is basically like, hey, I'm going to stop your wind. Only my wind of my brothers is allowed. And then I forgot she follows it by saying, your wind, I'll stop it for you. And you're like, shit, man, you have to. This is like fucking Namor from Final Fantasy with zippers.
And then she says, your wind, it doesn't belong here. And then she says...
yeah. Everything is your wind, your wind. Also, I guess Homura gets caught up by the wind at some point because her clothes get all torn up again. You got it?
No.
Damn it. Her clothes get all torn up again and sucked away. Or I guess the wind just cut her. I don't know. It's clothing damage stuff. Mm-hmm. And Sylph is like, she's too strong. And Homura says, I'm one of the Demon King's 4 shining stars. Welcome me, Homura, the Sword of Edens. And she does her big strike attack. And she seemingly wins. And we cut over, and Witch just beats Laguna. Just defeats
They
him.
don't even really get a fight.
No. And Witch says, we 4 shining stars dance to protect our family.
Dance because we have no emotions.
Yeah. And then we cut over to Drakenjo naked, looking very good inside of a tube. But then his arm shrivels up in a panel we didn't see and then expands again, or Hiro just forgot to draw it looking shriveled at first. And he's like, oh, so they got the element 4. I'm out of time. I gotta get my powered fast. Wait a minute. Whoa, she must have awoken her powers. And then we cut over to Rebecca. And she's fucking talking, and then she's eventually like, oh, maybe Draken Joe's too powerful. Maybe we should, like, avoid combat and return to the ship. And then Lobelia is like, I see now a journey to the path to maintain his health. I'm starting to see Draken's deal. You want to defeat him? Sounds like fun. And Rebecca's like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? With Lobelia? And she's like, sorry, I'm not her. All right, I'll help you out. And it's the same kind of like distorted face person we saw from back during the video game arc.
Yes.
So she's back.
And this also explains why the fuck Lobelia wasn't all beaten the fuck up when they found her in the cell. So, I mean, honestly, it's like the most interesting thing that happened in these two chapters because the fights were lamer than the ones that we had seen before them somehow.
I don't actually mind the Homura fight. Like, following the action-wise, it's not bad. There's zero strategy to it. It's literally, I got stronger. So did I. Slash. And the dialogue's horrendous.
Yes.
I'd be fine if they killed Sylph, just so I never have to hear her talk about your wind again.
Yeah.
But I still actually kind of like the speech that Homura gives. I think that the art is pretty good for the most part, despite all like the weird clothing damage stuff that just felt like it had to happen because it's a hero series.
It was a girl fighting a girl. It was gonna have to happen.
And I do like the end of the chapter with the return of that character. I can't remember if they were ever given a name or not.
I don't recall.
But the previous chapter was horrendous. I don't know why there was some need to... maybe DJ Zombie was something they brought up previously, and I just forgot about it. But if it wasn't, it felt like a weird new detail to add that was only included because Hero was like, Draken Joe's cool. What else are cool? DJs are cool. What if Draken Joe was a DJ? You're like, all right.
You imagine, like, they're in the club, and they're like, hey, who's that? Well, that's Draken Joe. We call him DJ Zombie. He's actually a criminal overlord, but he never kills anyone that could possibly be, because they could always be profitable to him. Oh! You just killed that guy. Yeah, I mean, he gets angry sometimes, you know.
I mean, every guy's got his limits. Come on. That guy puts his socks on, sock, shoe, instead of sock, shoe, shoe. That's insane, man. It's fine to kill them. Also, I like the implication.
That guy asked for the wrong version of Despacito to be played. Like, he had to die.
Yeah, come on. This guy wants modern Black Eyed Peas? That's absurd. No one likes them. He said, give me... He wanted pre-Phil Collins leading Genesis? Absurd. No one wants that. You can't dance that. I do also like the implication that the only way to be a DJ is if your initials spell out DJ.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was DJ Zombie or something like, well, it just worked out. His name was Draken Zombie. So, truthfully, his name should be DJ Zombie, to be very clear.
There's like someone who's like, I mean, I was going to be a DJ, but I mean, my initials spell DG. It's just not fair. I was so close. Damn you, mom and dad. I mean, you could just change your name. You could just, pretend. It's like, no, it's a lie. I'd be living a lie. Living a lie on the turntables.
I refuse to do that. Wick. Like, what?
He's just like, I won't actually touch a real record, so I just have to kind of make the sounds with my mouth.
I just listen to a lot of Beastie Boys and pretend.
All right.
Let's talk about that new one.
New manga, Bone Collection, Chapter 1. Chris, you'll never believe this, but this manga is about yokai and the exorcists who fight them.
I swear to God, the first page, I saw it, and I was like, all right, you got a real uphill battle to fight, because this shit is fucking treaded territory, man. You are trailblazing absolutely nothing right now.
I mean, we did, what, how long has Higuma been finished? 2 months or something like that?
Or last Sayuki, even, where you're just like the story of, like, exorcist people who fight yokai is not a fucking rare thing.
It's very well covered ground for shonen manga and jump manga, honestly, more specifically. Bone Collection, Chapter 1, I Don't Want to Die. We get introduced to our main character. He is a yokai, a 16-year-old named Kazami Jinai. It turns out that he has basically no talent for being an exorcist at all whatsoever. He's bad at studies. He's bad at most of the exorcism techniques. He's friends with a girl named Rino Tendo, and we find out that while basically Kazami was like grandfathered into exorcist school essentially. That Reno actually, passed her tests with flying colors and is actually, a skilled up and coming exorcist. So, for example, Kazami summons a Shikigami, and it's this, doll-sized thing. Reno summons one, and she gets to ride it around like a fucking horse. But Kazami has a special technique that would allow him to be very powerful, but it is forbidden, a forbidden yokai spell. And he starts to cast on this harmless looking little yokai fluffball thing. And she drop kicks him for considering doing it because he has already gotten in trouble for doing it before. Kazami goes off by himself to think about it. He thinks about, oh, I could use that one spell. But when he thinks about doing it, he thinks about a kappa, a little kappa named Kawano Shin. And as he's thinking about that, he's like, if I'm going to sit here and mope, I might as well buy a magazine with big boobs. And
we haven't,
not a very like.
I was going to say, we haven't talked enough about the fact that he
loves boobs.
He's a super big boob pervert. And also the only reason he has his job is because of the nepotism of his family.
Yes. He's not very likable for about the first 2/3 of this chapter. A yokai gateway opens up. Pretty girl falls from the sky. Kazami holds his arms out to catch her and misses her, and she falls flat on her fucking head, which I feel as though was a missed opportunity. That seems as though it should have gotten much more of a focus on it for comic effect. Instead, there's a big dramatic shot of her falling right in front of him, which is a cool dramatic shot, but honestly, just as much attention should have been paid to the fact that he misses her and she instead drops on her fucking head. So she, of course, is unconscious after this. So he picks her up to try and bring her somewhere, somehow not connecting the dots to realize that this girl who came through a yokai portal, who has visible horns and long clawed fingernails, is also a yokai. I guess because human-shaped yokai are very rare, maybe? I don't know. So it turns out Kazami's been missing for a while. His dad calls Reno, and she goes looking for him. The girl wakes up while Kazami's carrying him and is like, "Hey, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Kazami. Where am I?" "Well, you're in Japan." "I did it! I got here! Hooray!" And Kazami still doesn't connect the dots, so she's like, "I demand pancakes." This is my type of girl, Chris. She knows what she wants. So he takes her to a Denny's, not a Denny's. She eats pancakes. I don't know if it was a good idea to bring her to a Denny's ripoff, but I don't know. Maybe they're of better quality in Japan.
I mean, those are fucking fluffy ass goddamn pancakes. Look at that. This shit's like fucking 8 inches thick of pancake per fucking pancake. That's absurd.
So Kazami's looking at her boobs because she's wearing a low cut dress. And so Kazami is just gonna, like there, and he's like, "What would you like to do?" And she says, "You will be the Minister of Hospitality." And he's like, "All right, let's go to karaoke. Let's go bowling. Let's go do this. Let's do that." And they just, go around, playing around and stuff. Apparently Kazami's family is also loaded because he could just, go around taking her to all these kinds of things all in one night. But anyway, eventually they're crossing the street together, and the girl says, "Why do you assist me?" And Kazami's like, "Well, because I can't." He looks at her boobs, and then he's like, "Well, because I can't look the other way when people need help. That's my style." It's because she's got boobs. I mean, like, but then we actually hit on, the actual thrust of the chapter, which is the girl says, "You are helping me because you look upon me as a person. Would you have helped me if I had told you that I am a yokai?" and the light starts to change, and she's still in the middle of the intersection. So he reaches out and takes her hand and rushes her across the street and says, "It doesn't matter. As long as we can hang out and be friends, even if you are a yokai, I really don't care." Which is unusual, of course, for an exorcist to feel. Another yokai shows up. It's big, it's ugly, it's a cyclops, and it is very powerful, of course. So he shows up and he's like, "I'm an awful monster. Oh, women. I love women. I love wanting to kill women." He picks up the girl that Kazami's been helping, and he's like, "I'm going to squeeze you to death." And she's like, "Unhand me." And he's like, "Huh, I can't seem to squeeze her to death. Well, that's weird."
I do like that he explains that his reason for going to Shibuya is he's like, "I looked it up on Yahoo!"
Yeah, that's
and you're
really
like,
weird.
You're like, is the demon world's like only like search engine Yahoo?
A horrible existence. I mean, you'd think that if they were in hell that they would only have Bing, but So
hey, you know what, Nick? I used to shit all over Bing. Bing, fantastic way to look up pornography. You know?
Really?
Yeah, it's great.
Fine.
Pro tip for you guys.
So, the yokai is like, "What the fuck is with this girl?" And then suddenly a small explosion puffs over his head, cast by Kazuya. He then jumps onto its back and covers up its eye with his hands. And he's like, "You ruined my date! Fuck you!" And so he tells the girl to run away. And the demon just grows spikes from its back, impales him in a bunch of different places, throws him off. And so he's not doing so hot. Because I was like, "Oh no, my life is flashing before my eyes." Keep the Kappa shows up in his flashback again. The yokai realizes that he's an exorcist, and he's like, "Huh, you're really wimpy though. Was that spell you cast before? Trying to hurt me? You're a wimp. Wimp, 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 wimp." Wimp becomes approximately 30% of the remaining dialogue in this chapter. When we cut back to the present, so Kazami flashes back to when he was very young, and he had befriended this Kappa, Kawano Shin. And so he says, "Everyone was calling me a wimp, so I beat up the bad yokai, and I borrowed my friend's powers." And he's told like that spell is banned. Borrowing a yokai's powers is one of the Exorcist's most forbidden spells, the yokai spell. Those who have used it in the past eventually had their souls turned into yokai, never to become human again. And this yokai will eventually steal your soul. So before that happens, and they fucking executed the baby Kappa. Well, Jesus. That's dark.
It's pretty brutal. And I do kind of like it as a way to explain his character a little bit more. I do think it's weird because we're directly comparing the two with the exact same motivation that he's like, "Well, someone was calling me a wimp, so I beat them up." And you're like,
Yeah.
That's not the greatest motivation for it. It could be they were endangering people around me.
Or they were beating up this guy who wasn't bothering anyone or something like that.
Like, it's clear that that is the reason why he's doing it, but the reason he gives is, "They're calling me a wimp."
Wimp, 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 wimp. So the girl cradles Kazami's bloody body, and she's like, "You're an odd fellow for an exorcist." Okay. And then the Cyclops guy is like, "Who cares about that wimp? I want to fuck you," basically. And he's doing like rolling the arms motions with his forearms, it looks like. Not sure why, but he's doing it. Maybe that's the yokai way of saying, "I want to kill and fuck you." I don't know. But Kazami raises up his hand and grabs her boob. But then after grabbing her boob, he reaches inside of her body and pulls out a bone sword, and by borrowing her yokai power. And he stands up. He's got wild hair like he did in the flashback. He's got like some demonic markings on his face, and he fucking kills the fuck out of the Cyclops yokai. kicks it up into the air, and then does a thing. It's a little hard to tell what actually happens, but he drives his sword into its stomach and crushes him into the ground. And he observes, like, oh, wow, you're really strong, because he has borrowed the girl's power. So, but he says, I'm just glad you're safe, though. The girl starts blushing because she's immediately in love with this definitely cool guy who's a real pervert. Anyway, uh, so she introduces herself as a yokai known as a Gasha Dokuro, which is a real yokai. I looked it up. It's a giant skeleton, basically. Um, and so he realizes, oh, that's a really powerful yokai. Oh, God, you know. But she says, I will grant you permission to call me Pyra. So, oh, they're friends now. But Kazami's still thinking, like, is she a queen? What if? Oh man, if people find out I used her powers, I mean, like back when I used Kawano Shin's powers, that was just an F rank yokai, and I spent 3 months in prison. This little boy they threw in jail. Maybe the exorcists aren't good people, Chris. I get that. So he's like, I might get executed as a result of this. And of course, at that moment, Reno shows up after Exorcist and yokai have introduced themselves to each other. I was really, really, really hating this manga for about the first half. It started to pull up out of that a bit by the end. I would have really liked this probably if not for all of Kazami's negative qualities being so blatant and shoved down your throat at the beginning, because I think that this basic concept of he's, an exorcist who can get along with yokai the way that most people can't is like, that's a fine premise to have. But I guess we'll see how this goes in the next couple of chapters.
There's parts of it I kind of like. At first, I remember saying, I was like, I don't like the art in this series. And then I kind of started to think on it more, and I was like, I actually kind of do. I feel like in time, with some, like, sharpening, I think it could be a really fun art style. And there is a part I kind of like of, like, hey, he's going to take the power of yokai and use that. Like, it's something kind of fun. The thing that I really don't like is it's very annoying to me that his best friend, she is the top exorcist in her class, and the yokai he meets is the top tier of all yokai in seemingly anything, and yet it looks like we're only going to follow the main character who's a privileged douchebag through this, when it's just like, I don't like, I feel like we're just not going to see the other two of them actually get to do cool shit. Maybe we will. This is the first chapter. A lot of cool stuff could happen. But in my mind, I'm like, that seems like a tremendous waste of fucking time if we're going to introduce two, like, super, like, potent characters to the side and not follow them. We're going to follow the least likable person in the scenario. Like, I'm not super into that story.
He's not a very super likable guy. He definitely had his moments as the chapter went on, but I'm really not looking forward to the parts of the story where he is not meant to look good, because I feel as though they're going to be coming hard and fast and regularly.
There also feels like there is a strong feeling on the creative side that boobs are hilarious. Just by their nature, boobs are hysterical.
What's the joke? He looked at her boobs. What's the joke? He touched her boobs. Okay.
All right, then.
Cool. So, next we're going to be talking about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter number 13. Mash Bandit and the man who... Fucking my computer froze. The man who believes, I think it's called.
Mash Vandit,
the man who can't
doubt, yeah.
All right.
I was trying to help you with the other part, and then I couldn't read Mash Van Dead, so I struggled over for a while.
Doubt or Barrett, let's just call him Barrett because that's easier. Is still confronting, what's his name? Fucking screwhead guy.
Jerkface, but nobody likes.
Is it Lance? No, Lance is the guy that he's friends with now. Anyway, Crystal dude, fucking dropped my phone. So Barrett is thinking like, this is not great because this guy is clearly stronger than me, and Shroomhead over here isn't helping me at all. So how can I save the girl? And the guy's like, you're a real letdown, you piece of scum. But I'm willing to give the two of you a fighting chance. How's this? If you endure 5 hits for my magic, I'll leave that girl alone. I'll even bet a silver coin because I wouldn't want to break the school's rules. So the girl starts to say, that's crazy. You can't accept that. But Barrett's like, you got a deal. And he's like, fine, I'll take the hits because he's thinking like, my body is the toughest thing that I've got. Besides, he seems to specialize in defensive magic. I can handle that. So he's like, yeah, okay, it's just 5 hits. But of course the guy's like, no, it's not just you. 5 for the mushroom too. And Barrett's like, he's got nothing to do with this though. But he's like, well, you don't get to decide that. And Barrett's like, fine, I'll take his licks too. Does that work for you? So he's like, all right, fine. If you want to take 10 hits, all right, dumbass. So Mash starts to say something, but Barrett's like, no, this is my problem, and I'll get through it somehow. So, spire of crystalline rock or whatever to the sternum, and immediately Barrett's just like, this is gonna be bad.
I should have done this. Oh, this is
such a... I mean, for, a bone-crunching rock thrust to the chest, that's like such a great underreaction. Like, this is gonna be bad.
I should have done all 5. Should have done all 10. That was a mistake.
So after 3 hits, he's coughing up blood, but he's still standing. And he says, I bet I look like an idiot because even I knew your offer sounded too easy. But because I'm an idiot, I can't doubt things. Like that girl's tears. So there's even kind of almost an understanding on that he's like, yeah, that girl was probably trying to deceive me somehow, but I can't doubt. That's not the kind of person I am. He's willfully ignorant, Chris. Literally willfully ignorant. So apparently he's already taken 9 shots because he's just like, all right, fine, one more. Giant fucking rock thrust to the chest, knocks him on his ass. He's like, you thought you could endure that? And Barrett stands up. He's like, you said 10 hits, right? And that was the last one. So, yeah, he really got up from it. He's like, so you better keep your and he falls over. So, of course, the guy just says, how dumb can you be? You really thought you'd still be standing after getting thrashed by my magic? But Barrett just says, Shroomhead, take the girl and run. I'll find a way to hold him off. Blah! Another rock to from below because this guy's a dickhead. But the girl has now joined the guy, and she says, I know you're under my spell, but no one should be that desperate. And they're, looking down on him. And the guy even says, you think you're the main character of a story or something? I mean, he does literally think that. Yeah. So, fair enough. But they say, at least you gave us a good laugh. Dissed by the girl you sacrificed yourself to protect. You're the sorriest excuse for a man I've ever seen. And then there's a cream puff in his mouth all of a sudden, which apparently Mash just threw into his mouth for some reason. And he says, you guys have gone far enough. Bring it on. This time, I'll take your 10-hit challenge. Come at me, scumbag. So, yeah.
Next chapter.
Pretty straightforward chapter, but it was nice.
Yeah, next chapter should be very good. This chapter, I think, is meant to make us like Explosion Guy a little bit more. It is still a little bit strange because he had such a unlikable introduction that I still think was... Yeah, it was very clear that the story wasn't on his side, but I guess we're meant to be like, all right, he'll probably be a weirdo, but we'll have like the likable side of him as well. But I'm more excited to see Mash just beat this guy up, which is weird. Like I've kind of firmly gotten into the side of Mash now that's like, I don't know, we'll fight bad guys.
All right, Mission Yozakura Family, Mission 33, Nanao's Medicine Part 2. Sadly, it was only a 2-parter, it turns out. Oh well. Last time, Basilisk, the snake in the biology lab, had swallowed some of Nanao's medicine, and Kitasato happened to be in the biology lab as it was starting to swell up and freak out. We see that happening at the beginning of this chapter, and then cut over to the roof, where freaking Tayo was basically performing acupuncture on Nanao to try and help him out after all the various, near misses that he's had. I do like that there is a note where he says, like, oh, I learned about pressure points from Ayaka for stabilizing stuff. So, hey, there you go. But Nanao says, I was really on the verge of just giving up on school, but, I might be able to continue this for a little longer. So thanks, Brother Tayo. Then a couple more animals from the biology lab come up to the roof because turns out all the animals have escaped because something has been rampaging around, causing trouble. What could it possibly be? And when they arrive at the club to find out about that, Kitasato is unconscious on the ground, but it turns out she's okay. She's just unconscious. Nanao spots one of Basilisk's scales, and it is tumorous, and so he immediately realizes what has happened, starts to blame himself. Kitasato wakes up and she's like, I have to find Basilisk. But she said, and although Nanao tries to stop her, she says, I remember the pained expression on its face. I've got to help it. And she runs off. Tayo says, go after her, Nanao. I'll take care of the animals, as they're all biting him, basically. So he'll be fine.
Yeah, it's all going to be okay.
Kitasato heads to the boiler room because she immediately thinks, like, I mean, this is usually where Basilisk goes when it escapes because, it's a good place for a snake to hang out. And she tries to find it by, she is waving, dead mice around to try and draw it in. Basilisk lunges out of the shadows and tries to attack her, and now gets her out of the way. And he realizes what he's got to do about this because it's his responsibility to stop it after causing this. He says to Kitasato as the snake lunges towards them, thanks for everything. He allows it to bite down on his arm, and his entire body starts to swell up. As he says, I can neutralize the medicine with my mutated cells, so you'll be fine soon. Kitasato, meanwhile, can watch all of this happening. The snake is basically immediately cured after, I guess, he causes it to suck in agents from his body. Basilisk is okay. Kitasato goes and grabs him, and he goes back to being her scarf. But Nanao has been carried off by Tayo, who has shown up after everything. And Nanao's body is all swelling up and stuff. It's really bad. His swelling is basically as big as the rest of his body. So he carries him up to the roof, and Tayo's body is swelled up from dealing with animals. I guess a little bit of levity, because, this isn't supposed to be a dramatic moment or anything. Anywho, so now says, I've completely lost control over my mutation, but I've come to terms with it. And he starts to take the vaccine out, but Tayo again says, I mean, you're not going to be able to return to normal after this. And now says, well, I mean, Kitasato saw me like this anyway, so it's all right. I was able to keep going until now because of your help, so I have no regrets. He starts to get the syringe ready. Tayo tries to stop him, but when Nanao tries to brush him off, he accidentally knocks him on his ass. And he's like, see, I can't control my own strength anymore. Like, I can't hold on anymore. I'm not normal. And this normal life I was pretending I could have is over. He goes to plunge the syringe into his body, but Tayo stops him again. Actually, seemingly takes it through the hand, which is pretty nasty. Like, I literally kind of twinged up when I saw this the first time. So he's like, hey, come on, calm down. Do that thing that you do, recite your gene code and calm down like you always do. And he starts to calm down, and his swelling goes down. And Tayo says, hey, I had a younger brother, so I know. You're a normal younger brother, and your older brother here is going to be by your side, so there's nothing to worry about. You did good, and I'm proud of you. It's like, aw. They called back to that thing that hasn't been mentioned since chapter 1. That he had a brother before this. Kitasato shows up on the roof. She's collecting all the other animals that have escaped, and Nanao and Tayo look over at her and they're like, "How long have you been here?" And she's like, "From the point you said you can do it, and now we're at the rooftop." So the entire time, literally, and she literally just says like, "I guess you can metamorphize Nanao. I didn't know that." And they're like, "Oh, she's taking this incredibly well."
Yeah, well, that's like the high spot. Is she doesn't care. She's like, whatever. You're still my friend. You look normal now. I don't care.
Says, "Don't quit the biology club because I can't lose a helping member."
Yeah.
So Tyle's like, "Hey, I told you, you're normal." But then they think that, oh, she might have discovered that they're actually siblings, which would be bad because Tyle's cover would be blown. But she's like, "Do you want to join our club?" And so I thought that this was a nice little side story, and it was nice to see more into one of the family members' lives like this.
Yeah, it's a very cute little chapter. I enjoy that we got like a full thing. There was no Kiichiro or anything like that popped up.
Oh.
We didn't have any like extra nonsense. Just a legitimately kind of heartwarming story, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I would like to see more stuff like this of Tayo bonding and becoming closer with the other members of the family.
Yeah.
So. All right, Moriking. So, last time a fucking beetle showed up as a naked man, and he's the main character, and he's gonna be king of the insects. And we get like our actual plot hook in this, which is that there are probably other insects that are like him in the world that he's going to have to defeat in order to become the king of the animal kingdom. And this kind of thing only happens once every 1,000 years, apparently. And then there's discussion where the parents actually show up, and they're like, "Well, you have to let us keep Moriking." And Shoa's like, "Why is there a boy in our house?" "Oh, Shoko, are you allowing? Is this degenerate? Your boyfriend? Are you saying that we should actually, let him stay in our house?" And they have to come and they call a family council meeting basically in order to decide whether or not to let Moriking stay there. And the dad is really against it, but the mom is just like, "Can you take care of him and be a good pet owner?" And Shota's like, "Yeah, I can. Okay." And then she's like, "You did a good job, and I know that you saved my daughter, so that's all I need to call you family." And basically, Shoko refuses to take her dad's side because she's kind of disgusted by him. And so, yay, the plot is resolved. So Moriking is fine staying there. Yep.
It's a chapter. It sure is. Like how I mentioned before that last week's chapter felt like it should have just been a one-shot. Mm-hmm. I felt so much more confident in that after reading this chapter. I'm like, everything from the last chapter was pretty much thrown away to start up a new premise where it's like, he has to fight other bugs to prove himself to be the best bug guy. And, maybe he has to pretend to be married to the girl or something. It's very goofy, and I don't know. Like, there's a part of me. It's like, do you bother getting any level invested in it? Can you like? I'd be curious if there's anybody out there who's legitimately like, I'm kind of excited to see more of this. Wow. All right, Nick. Let's talk about We Never Learn. Question 156. X equals Thumbelina Supercomputer Part 6. Ouch. Nick, I stubbed my finger. Can you take over?
I will fly to Pennsylvania and touch your face.
Oh, no, not my face. So last chapter, Sekijo's mother showed up. And Mama Sekijo's like, "Hey, thanks for letting me spend the night. I'm making breakfast for you all." And they're like, "Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We can take care of ourselves." And then Sekijo's like, "Wait, no." Or Sekijo's mom's like, "Wait, no, let me do it. I just want you to be free to do whatever you want." And she falls forward and does the thing where she grabs both girls by their pants and pulls them down.
Does no one in this series zip up their pants?
Or wear belts, or I don't like... It's one of those things.
Sekijo seems to have a belt on, I think.
It looks like she
doesn't seem to do any good.
Her pants at least have belt loops on them.
Yeah.
but it's always like
I don't want to examine that shot too closely because of what I'll end up doing. So I'll just
it's one of those things where like it's such an impressive fluid movement to snatch pants and clean jerk them down.
two pairs simultaneously.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I guess the skirt's not that hard.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, but a pair of pants, and then to not disturb the shirt at all. That's a very key detail. And at that point, I was like, man, this is going to be a dumb chapter. And I wasn't prepared. So they're just like, hey, sorry, thanks for all that. And Yuega's like, wow, thanks for including me in all this. And Sekijo's like, hey, look, I apologize. I know my mother's like kind of an extra hassle, and it's inconveniencing you even, Yuega. And he's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And you talk about how last night we cut over to where that conversation was last week, where it's like, wait, you're going to move back home? And Sekijo was like, yeah, I mean, if she doesn't want to, of course, I don't want to force her to. And her mom was saying, it's like, actually, I'm running away from home, so I was wondering if Sekijo wanted to live with me, just the two of us. And they're like, wait, why are you running away? She's like, well, I decided to separate from my husband. Whoa, heaviness. And then the flashback ends. And basically just like, why are you guys so serious? And Sekijo's basically like, it's not that rare these days for a couple to separate. Our family's all about people being free to make their own choices, and I'll do as I wish too. I told my mother I'd live with her, and I could still pay rent and come here every day, so it's not really that big of an issue. And Yuiga's like, hey, wait. She's like, no, it's decided. So we better finish up Ogata's game before my mom finds this new apartment. I'm going to convenience store to make some copies of the ideas we wrote last night, and I'm going to work on it. So she flies off really quickly. And everyone's like, huh. We cut over to Sekijo. She didn't go to the copy store. She's over at an arcade, and she's doing the claw machine. She sees a text conversation she's currently having with her dad, where she asked him, hey, Mom says she's moving out. Are you okay? And he's like, well, if that's what she decided, there's nothing I can do.
Like, apparently this is how he's finding out by the wording there. So that's cool.
Yeah. And a little girl's like, hey, can I have a turn? I'm not sure what happens here, because the girl goes, huh? And then the next panel was the girls walking away being like, it's just a crane game. No need to be so emotional. We don't actually get to see what Sekijo did. I assume she was just vacantly kind of like zeroed in, but it feels like there was a panel.
I assumed when I read it that she was crying, but when it shows her later, she's not crying. But then again, the next time we see her face, time has passed, because there's like, a time lapse panel where it cuts outside and then cuts back in. But yeah, it is weird, that's like the only context that she has been emotional is that someone said she was being emotional. So
I assume that she did something. There just doesn't seem to be like any actual visual cue that it happened outside of the girl being like, no need to get so emotional. A lot of people are saying, yeah, she's crying, and I'm not saying she's not. I'm just saying there's nothing that visually indicates she's crying besides the little girl saying she's stopped being so emotional, basically. As you said, time passes. Sekijo's like, what am I even doing here? Yuega and Ogata show up. They're like, yeah, that's what we're trying to say. And they're like, yeah, well, you didn't come home, so we were worried. And Ogata's like, hey, how did you know she'd be here? Yuega's like, oh, there was a bit of an information leak. And Ghost Girl had taken Sekijo's cell phone and texted the information to where she was to Yuega. So, Ghost Girl cares. She really wants to make sure that the people who live at that house are happy. And she's, Sekijo's like, hey, you guys worry too much. I just got sidetracked by these games on my way home. I'm about to pop back. And the little ghost girl, Masao, is like, she's lying. She was very sad. And
that girl said she was being emotional. Didn't you hear her?
Yeah. Ogata grabs her hand and just says, hey, Sawako, games are supposed to be fun. I'm dense when it comes to human emotions, so if I've got the wrong idea, I'm willing to believe you. But if you're really in pain but pretending otherwise, that tells me, that you don't trust me enough to open up to me, and that'll make me want to cry. Is that okay with you? It's kind of a weird way to open up to, like...
That's a very
threaten it.
manipulative.
Yeah.
That's a very manipulative way of doing that.
But I get
This
it.
whole
It's
entire
Ogata.
thing, like, by the way, well, I'll get into that point later. Never mind. So,
Well, we go to the flashback. We heard before about Sekijo getting her chemistry set, and they're like, "Wow, here you go. You're gonna be a smart kid." And they're like, "Oh, cool." And Sekijo says, "I think that gift got me started at being studious at school. It made me happy to see my parents smile whenever I brought home good grades." And then we see her saying, "But," and someone say, like, her parents are fighting. "She spends the school day, the school day at the nurse's office. How could you let this happen to our poor daughter? Oh, so this is my fault." Basically, it becomes Marriage Story a little bit, where you just kind of are watching a relationship break down. And Sekijo says it was around that time that things started to go off track. And Sekijo walks in, her parents' home. He's like, "Dad, Mom." They're like, "Oh, hey, what's up? What's up, kiddo? Hey, it's almost your birthday. What do you want for your birthday?"
everything's fine.
Oh, man.
Mom and Dad aren't fighting.
Whew, it's a brutal moment. And she thinks back to the "be free to do whatever you want." On the surface, it sounds like such a nice thing for parents to say. But like bumping up against an injury, it felt symptomatic of the distance between us. Everyone leaves me. Even my family fell apart because of me. It was my fault. So Sekijo's even saying, "I'll do what you want, so please do what you want to, too, And thinking back to her mom separating, so she's like, that's just how it is. And Sekijo's like, what could I do? It's just easier to pretend that it doesn't hurt. And then we get the Ghost Girls flashback, Nick, because legitimately Ogata is the least relevant character in her entire arc.
So as we get into chapter 6 of X equals the dead ghost girl with a puppet and the potentially lesbian best friend.
And it's just it's her parents saying, "Hey, you want like a toy? Do you want anything?" And the little girl being like, "I want a friend." "Just kidding. I want a doll." "Yeah, that's what I want." And then she died.
Yeah, legit.
So Sekijo's like, "Well, I shared a lot of stuff today. I feel a lot better. Let's go on home." Ghost Girl's like, "Hey," and grabs Yuiga's like, "I want to help her." And someone might have to explain exactly how this happens, because I didn't totally follow this next chain of events. Ogata says, "I know it's ludicratic to get involved in another family's private matters, but it isn't some stranger. It's Sekijo. I don't know how, but I want to help her too." And I guess the Ghost
and then
Girl...
Yuiga's like, "What's ludicratic? Do you mean ludicrous?" Because sometimes Ogata uses the wrong words for things.
And then Ghost Girl...
She said, because she said, "I want to help Sawako too," then she literally realizes, why did I say too?
Okay, so it was just a moment where she must have heard the Ghost Girl. I thought the Ghost Girl was possessing her, because you see, like, the energy level around Ogata in the next panel, and you see something around the little girl too. And I was like, did the little girl take over Ogata to make her want to help Sekijo? That makes, I guess, more sense. Probably could have been presented in a bit clearer way, but yeah. And he's like, "Hey, yeah, she's not a stranger. She's our friend. Let's do this." They both say she's our dear friend.
Yes. So there you go, Chris.
Well, the bet isn't that Ogata has the hots for her. It's a Sekijo does.
I thought I could sneak that in.
Sneak it in. I'm like, I guess he got me. But that's essentially the chapter.
So, Chris,
yes.
I know we've been harping on this point for a while, but this is part 6, right, of this saga? Okay. The Ephemeral Mermaid, part 6. Do you remember what happened in it?
So I think there was 2 to 3 chapters where they were just like spending time at the cabin. And then after that, it was kind of Yuiga starting to have to think about his relationship. And then we got the flashback. So I think maybe at this point we were starting to get into the flashback of him and his little sister.
Part 6 was Uruka was at the airport and was about Ogata and Fumino letting go of Yuiga and telling him he should go after Uruka and him running off.
Which is weird. There's not that many chapters after that.
No. I mean, there's like a chapter of him rushing to get to her, and then there might have been 2 chapters actually of him rushing to get to her, and then a chapter where they talk and they confess, and then there were 9 chapters total of the Ephemeral Princess, and then there was a follow-up chapter, which was basically the future ending. Yeah. So we are at that point in the story, and the only times that we have addressed the relationship between Ogata and Yuiga, which is what this story is allegedly about, have been them saying they play a game where they get, kind of intimate with each other sometimes.
Yeah, they pretend to be a couple sometimes.
There has been no development of those feelings. I don't know if Susui literally was just like, well, how the fuck do I get Ogata and Yuiga together? And just gave up, or what? Because...
I mean, look, I'm very happy about the fact that we got some more about Sekijo. This is a great chapter for Sekijo. Like, it's very painful, not to, reveal too much, but, the being children of divorced couples is not an uncommon thing. Yeah. I think both of us can relate to it.
Both of us have separated parents, and it sucks. Going... So, and it's really bad in Sekijo's case because she actually blames herself for them not being in love anymore, which of course is bullshit, but you can see the way that her weird mind works, and it's, you gotta think oh my God, she's got to have been dealing with that for forever, because, by the time that her mom says yeah, we're getting separated, she's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The actual news of them getting separated isn't what hurts her. It's just, her acknowledging the reality of what's been going on this whole time. And then, yeah, you throw in freaking the Misao's, the little look of she was sick in the hospital and was alone with no friends. And it's oh!
It's such a weird, it's astonishing. I really almost want to be able to time jump forward 4 months to when we're halfway through the Fumino arc to just see where that is. Because it's mind-boggling of me to think right now that somewhere out there's a fervent Ogata fan that's just no, this ending's just as canon as the other ones, the Uruka one. You're like, how? There is almost nothing about Uruka in this chapter.
Ogata,
sorry, yeah.
Now... I will say, I don't think that necessarily each of these stories have to be about how Yuiga and the girl got together.
Yeah.
But allegedly, the premise that was pitched to everyone when the announcement was made was, this is the story of Yuiga and this girl being together, if this was the canon girl. So, is it just going to be... Now, even if Yuiga and Ogata were a legitimate romantic couple, but the story had very little to do with them, it was just them as a couple dealing with this, that would make more sense to me. If it were this is, a snippet from their life as a couple, than this, where they're not technically a couple, they're kind of moving towards it, but then the entire story is about everything else and not addressing that at all. So... it's weird.
It's very strange.
And then at the same time, I'm happy that we're getting this stuff for Sekijo, because she's kind of a favorite of the podcast because of her, because of the pizza bed, but also because she's a memorable character. So, all right, let's move on to talk about Dr. Stone.
Time to get stoned.
I can't remember very much about this chapter, Chris.
They eat burger.
Z equals 148 Pioneers of Earth. They have arrived in America, and they're land of Las Vegas, where people pushed a truck for a long time in order to get good at being offensive linemen. they do address the point where they were like, we came up with that lie that Lillian, was from, a United States that had been depetrified, but before we came here, there was still, that kind of like tiny part of ourselves that was holding out hope that maybe the rest of the world was fine, or somewhere else in the world was fine. And instead, we get here and there's all these petrified statues. And they have to come up with a theory for why there's all these statues in a row going out into the water, and they're like, it's because the San Francisco Bridge used to be here and it's fucking decayed away to nothing. Which I'm not sure exactly how well bridges hold up after 5,000 years, because there's literally no glimpse of anything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're like, let's go get some fucking corn. And they get on their smaller vehicles and sail off down a stream, and they're going to follow it towards Sacramento. And Senku's like, fortunately, we've got a little bit more time because of the way that the Earth's axis is a little bit different. So, winter's going to be a little bit later, which is nice. Then the downside, however, is that the ecosystem's been affected in weird ways, so let's hope that no beasts decide to attack. And Tsukasa and Kohaku are like, actually, it would be great if a weird beast attacked. And Ginro's like, wait, what are you talking about? Because they're freaks who kill lions for fun,
Yeah.
So, sure enough, fucking alligators show up and attack. So, yay. They're very large, too.
Giant alligators, which I've heard is very true, that when alligators are undisturbed by humanity and kind of just left to be that way, they can get extraordinarily large.
So there you go. Fortunately, the boat that Tsukasa's on, they learned how to jump it out of the water so that they can have a cool midair shot of all of them flying through the air. And the alligators are basically doing the, animal speak joke that Dr. Stone does occasionally. They're going, meat! But Kohaku and Yo look at them and go, meat! And, yeah. So, we don't even actually see the fight, really. We just see the fighters all jumping forward with their weapons drawn, and then it cuts to everyone around a campfire cooking up as Francois cooks up gator burgers.
I do like how people in their chat are pointing out that this is supposed to be like the West Coast, so somehow like alligators navigated across the Rocky Mountains.
5,000 years, guys!
Yeah, but they got over the Rocky Mountains.
They went around the fucking Panama Canal. Why not?
Yeah, all right, that makes sense. I do have a small annoyance with like the big everybody fights group shot. I do think it's kind of cool at first that we see Yo in the boat, like in the air. So it's like, oh, is Yo kind of part of the fight team? No, I guess he's just kind of part of the I want to eat meat team. But
Kinra's in there.
Kinra's in there. But we had to like shove the two girls into one panel. They couldn't get their own individual ones, or just give Kohaku her own individual one. That bothers me. Where it's just like, we'll just shove the girls together. They get theirs. It's like,
which panel are you talking about?
When they show the different characters' eyes. So like you could see Tsukasa's eye and Hyoga's eye, and I guess that's Moses' eye. And then you see Amaterasu and Kohaku in the same panel, and then fucking Fancy Sword Dude gets his own of the eyes on page 14.
Oh, okay. I was not even paying attention to that bit at all. I was looking at the group shot next to it.
Yeah, anyway. It was just one of those ones I was like, come on. They can't like either give Kohaku her own panel or just like make them separate.
It is actually kind of, now that you talk about it, it is kind of a nice little thing that they're like, oh, these characters all have very distinct eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I get your point. So they've carved up the gators. Francois has made gator burgers. And then as Tsukasa is carving up one of the gators, he pulls out its stomach and he's like, the gator swallowed this whole. And it's a fucking ear of corn. Like gators eat. So Senku's like, we made the cutoff. The seeds for reviving all of humanity must be upriver. Next is Corn City. Hooray. Nobody ate the Gator Burger, or had it. There was no big reaction to eating Gator Burgers. They just ate them and were like, "This is good."
Yeah.
Kind of disappointed.
Pro tip to everybody: if you're making burgers, you gotta make sure you toast those buns. I don't know. Doesn't look like they were specifically toasted. And Francois,
Very
it's a big failure.
thick burger.
Yeah, you want to toast that bun. You want to give that some crunch, some texture crunch.
Also, I'm not really sure how they're eating it the way that they are. Like, because they're basically, they're doing the whole, like take the big thick burger in both your hands and chow into it. But Chrome appears to have unhinged his jaw in order to bite into his, whereas Kohaku is like nibbling on the top bun.
Yeah, well, she's doing one of those things where you take a big burger and you bite into the top, like a little top part of the, like maybe the patty and then the bun, and the rest of it you leave untouched. So you eat up and down like a fucking apple.
Is that how you eat apples?
Yeah, that's how most humans eat apples, right?
I take the apple and I turn that sumbitch sideways and bite into it. So
yeah, well, it's just the idea that you would eat, like you would take this and you're not just gonna eat, like you don't eat an apple where you eat like from top to bottom in one bite like a burger, like you take a bite and then you're like, I'm gonna go up and down and like around, stuff like that. It's like an adventure.
I have never heard someone describe eating an apple as like an adventure, but here we are.
All right.
Actually, now that it's been a long time staring at that burger, I kind of want one. So
I know. It's a moment where I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll make some. Like, nah, too late.
Because it's a fucking triple stacker. It's like, oh, jeez.
It's very extensive. You should save some for everybody else.
Everyone's
really
gonna
heavy.
Massively shitting after eating those things.
Real sluggish too. You're really gonna feel it the next morning.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to Chainsaw Man. Chapter 67, The First Devil Hunter. So, it's a really weird opening to this, as the two guys who were knocked out of the building before, everyone was warped to hell are just hanging out while the young guy's octopus keeps all the puppets at bay, and they're just hanging out on one of its tentacles, chatting casually. All right. But they're, sharing some details and stuff like that. And what is this guy? Mad Dog, I think was his name, or something like that, or Wolf, I forget. He's like, hey, be careful about sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, because, he's mentioned, they're talking about Makima, and he's like, are you sure Makima's not listening? He's like, no, I had Octopus check, and there's no, small animals that he would borrow the hearing of nearby. And he's like, well, all right, be careful about sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. And he says, I don't have time to do that. I have finals coming up. Oh, yeah, you're still in high school, aren't you? He's like, are you an idiot? So everyone in series is weird, basically.
That's how it is.
Denji is in his chainsaw double form and is fighting against not Makima, my mistake, Santa Claus in her weird doll chimera form. He manages to chop some of her limbs off, but the building kind of collapses some more after all the shit that it's been through. And not sure exactly what happens, but seemingly Denji fell, and it's because he gets up and he's like, ow. And Santa gets up and she says, look at me. My wounds healed instantly in the darkness. This body was half a year from death, yet it regenerates splendidly now. So apparently she wasn't lying to Toko about the fact that she was going to die soon.
Yeah.
So Denji responds with, less talking, more fighting. What do you expect?
Hey, he's fair. You know what? I like it.
He jumps towards her, and then Santa is replaced by a bunch of her puppets, or maybe they jumped in and interfered. I'm not sure. So a bunch of them are coming towards him, and he's like, fuck. So we cut outside to where Chuanji, her head is being held by one of her remaining girlfriends, because seemingly those two that had their heads chopped off didn't survive. I'm shocked. It's the stitched together girl, the one who can't talk, as opposed to the Halloween obsessed one. So stitched together demon girl flips up Chuanchi's eye patch and reaches into her head and yanks out an arrow?
I guess it's an arrow. I thought it was a knife at first, but there is like
It's like
feathers.
a knife. Well, yeah.
I think it's just like almost the kind of dynamic angle we're looking at makes the arrowhead look a lot longer, but I guess
Maybe
it makes
it's a
more
lawn
sense.
dart.
Or maybe it's supposed to be just a blade. I guess it's arrows. She has like kind of an arrow mohawk. And then and like when she becomes her
Really
full form.
big dart. Hang on, I'm Googling something. Well, now I just got a shot of a really large Nerf gun, so that didn't help me at all.
By the way, my brother had a dartboard, and so before this quarantine, I had a couple of my friends over for D&D, and we were waiting for the last player to show up. So we're like, hey, you want to play some darts? And we're like, hey, why don't we throw on some music? So I typed dart music into YouTube. No, it's not like a horrible thing. So we got like an actual, I guess, like what's considered like a dart theme song. But one of the other videos was World Championship dart entrances. And I love it because dudes coming out for the World Championship dart entrances come out like wrestling stars. They're like, boo doo 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 doo.
And it's these kind of chubby middle-aged guys in polos.
In a very small audience. Like I'm not trying to shit on like darts as a professional sport or anything like that, but it's not like a huge stadium where you're in front of like tens of thousands of people. It looked like there was like maybe like 150 people around. So it's one of those things. So it's like interesting. I love the idea of like bravado for it. It's kind of cool.
It's amazing the kind of influence that professional wrestling has had on that kind of thing. So, people want to come out to big entrances for, for example, like esports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's all that pop circumstance for something that seems very out of place for almost everything besides wrestling, basically.
The League of Legends world was lit aflare when Faker did a 2-second roll during his introduction at the World Championship. And you think back to that.
2 seconds.
Well, I mean, no, I just mean it was a very quick
extended.
roll.
I mean, 2 seconds is actually a pretty long roll. So how far was he rolling?
No, I just mean like it's a very quick roll. It wasn't like a thing. It wasn't like he extended the roll. It was like it was a real quick like somersault thing. But everyone was blown away at the time. They're like, such showmanship, such bravado, and you're like, I mean, I guess so for a bunch of like guys who are gonna hang around a computer the rest of the day. I guess it was kind of cool.
I mean, who was that guy who did the "You Can't See Me" thing, and he became instantly recognizable because of it? So
yeah,
it's amazing, because I mean, I think that so many of them are just so like cued in that they're just like, okay, so any bit of showmanship really stands out. Anywho, so after pulling this spike, dagger, arrow, knife, whatever. Stitched together, a devil girl throws Chuanchi's head down as Denji comes flying out of the building, pursued by approximately 24 puppet people, and Chuanchi's head is dropped into the pile as Denji goes, and I quote, "Ouch, ow, 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 ow." And then holes start appearing in the puppets as a crossbow ? Devil appears next to Denji, because it turns out she has this kind of devil power, the same as him and as Ray's. So there you go. And she starts taking body chunks out of everything. Denji, of course, goes, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Hey, Chainsaw Man, give me a hand until I kill that devil. That bastard killed my women." Well, okay then.
Are they all dead? Is Halloween still alive?
I don't think that she's dead.
It looks like the one killed herself, bringing her back. So, or maybe she is still around. I don't know. I thought there was something that maybe suggests she died in the process of that.
Drops her head, and then we don't see her again.
Okay.
So
I guess there's potentially still 2 alive, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the 2 without their heads, I think we are definitely meant to believe are dead. So, so Chuanchi says that the dolls are powered up, so it's probably pointless to take them out without killing the master doll. And then she's like, well, either that or I could cut them up so they won't come back. Oh, Denji, master of the very simple approach. But Chuanchi disappears between panels as the puppets are coming towards them, and Denji's like, "All right, watch my back. Oh, you're gone."
I'm so curious to see, because it reminds me. I love that Fujimoto feels very much like rules don't apply to me. So my main new cool character is gonna be like a bunch of arrows on a naked woman's body, and I don't know. Go fuck yourself when you decide if you want to animate this. I'm gonna be curious to see if next chapter she finds like a real tiny leotard to put on, like when they were like, Reze can't run around in this fight with no underwear on. This is gonna be really hard.
You can just be like, just paint her body white like you do with Toga whenever she's naked.
True.
So, it's a very weird thing because she flat out says, "I'm naked when I do this," and it's like, well, you look like you're wearing a bodysuit when you. All right, whatever. So. So Santa Claus is walking down a hallway somewhere, presumably going to go and kill fucking Makima because that's what she was trying to do. But then spikes fly out and blow her body to bits. And let's see here. I think this is Chuanchi saying, "I didn't anticipate you joining us." But Santa responds, "It's an honor to meet the human who was known as the first devil hunter." More stuff flies through the air, blows her body apart. It reforms again. And she's like, I can spread my sense of pain across the other dolls so that I'm just tickled. Now, how do I hunt an invisible hunter? As for Little Chainsaw, can you kill these dolls? As all the puppets that she has created start to take on their human characteristics again, and they're all going, "Oh God, what happened to my arms? It's a devil!" And Denji says, "For real? Come on! This is that move the super evil villains use."
It's not wrong.
Well, yes, it is.
Very right. It's a fun chapter. It's really cool. It's a big, cool, like, reintroduction for Kwanzi. It's just very solid, fun, and interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So I was thinking this after when I actually first read this chapter, and so I know that people were like, "It's not like Bleach at all," but I have to say this: when you read Chainsaw Man chapter to chapter, it tends to, a lot of times in these moments, it's just an action scene, and a lot of stuff happens. There's very little dialogue. This was like the most dialogue-heavy chapter that we gotten in a few weeks, and there was still not a lot in it. And chapters just kind of end and then begin. There's not, like a lot of other chapters you get where there's like, one big cliffhanger that they end on or something. And even with this, the cliffhanger was like, well, now the devils have human parts and stuff. So that said, I hated whenever Bleach did this, especially towards the end. I just, got sick of it, just kind of like being, a chapter happened, whatever.
Yeah.
Chainsaw Man, I don't think there's been a bad chapter since we started covering it, though. And it does this a lot. Yeah. So, it goes to show that there's, no wrong method to writing manga. It's just you either do it well or you don't. Or rather, people like it or they don't when it's done. So,
yeah. Fun times. Let's move on, Nick. Black Clover, page 230 or 248. Luck versus, I can't read his name. Schwendkit? I don't know. Who cares? He dies. So we start with Asta introducing Luck and Magma to the Heart Kingdom. And he says, "Yeah, I brought Blackpool Special Assault Duo." And they're like, "All right, well, here. I'm going to teach you how to create runes from natural mana. Because, unless you do this, you won't be able to create an array." And it's me kind of being like, what the hell's an array? It's fine. They're introducing it now.
You're like, wait a minute. Was this explained when I wasn't paying attention? Oh, no, they're explaining it now.
Oh, no. This is a new thing, I guess. So Magma is having a lot of difficulty doing this. And what's his name? Giz or whatever is like, yeah, this guy's mana is too low. You're like, about a stage 5, and you have to be at least a stage 3 to do a raise. And he's like, oh, hey, look, Luck's really, really good at it. So
he's just like writing down butts over and over again.
Yeah, it's just dick butts in the air. So Magma starts stomping out, and Ast is about to go after him when Luck's
never see him again.
Yeah. Luck's like, hey, just leave him be. If he lets this stop him from getting stronger, then that means that was all he was worth. Which isn't a nice thing to say, but when you kind of remember that they're supposed to have like kind of a very rivalry friendship, it makes more sense. So, kind of like that.
Honestly, if Magna just didn't come back, I still feel like I'd be fine because we've got 4 other characters who are on the good guy's side who use flame magic. So
yeah, Magma's at the real misfortune of being the low totem on the pole, so to speak. Gija, whatever his name is, explains. He's like, hey, you form a raise with ruins. It lets you issue simple orders to magic, like pursue or, for example, grow bigger. I don't know why this is being introduced. Magic has not seemed to require this sort of thing to this point, but they're sort of like, hey, I guess this explains how Zora makes such intricate traps. He's telling it to do very specific things. They don't really reference him too much in here, aside from the fact that they wanted to bring him...
to keep you out of your mind, Chris, because he's the guy in the Spade Kingdom.
Well, they do bring him up, but they mention they wanted to bring...
My point has been immediately refuted.
They wanted to bring him, but he's too much of a loner. So, yeah. Anyway, he says, think up an array that will suit your combat style. And they're like, hey, thanks for teaching me how to use lightning magic. And there's a small thing about like, hey, the way I use it's different from the way you use it. So, put those to work together and create a magic all your own. Skin Dude's like, you can't beat me just by being speedy. So, Luck uses his array to make himself even faster. And Skin Guy's like, it's not going to work. My skin defense detects magic and activates right away automatically. Because that's a rule that's kind of new.
It's like Rock Lee versus Gaara, where, Rock Lee had to just go faster and faster because Gaara's automatic defense would just block him. So, yeah.
It's a little less cool because the whole Rock Lee automatic defense thing was kind of...
A little less cool?
Yeah. Well, Nick, this is kind of like the Rock Lee versus Gaara of the Black Clover universe, right? It's like on the same level.
Oh, this skin magic guy has been built up so well as an antagonist, and he's definitely not going to be defeated in such a low-level battle.
So Skin Guy is like, pretty cute trick, or pretty clever trick, cutie. But in that case, let me show you how clever I can be too. And he makes guns out of his skin. And I'm like, man, I guess that's clever. I don't really.
And now I'll shoot my own flesh at you. I mean, you can if you want to. Are you sure, though?
I'm like, is that clever? I don't really know.
Aha! I'll get you eventually. Oh, I'm starting to slow down. I'm losing a lot of blood for some reason.
I should stop shooting my organs at you. Luck's, ping-ponging around, zip, 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 zip. And Skin Guy's like, well, he's using up so much magic doing this, he can't last much longer. And then once that happens, I'll mess him up real. And Luck says, get faster. And he kicks him in the stomach. And Skin Guy's like, what? No, that was just a tiny little bit of damage, but that still kind of hurt. How? Is this boy faster than my skin detection? And Skin Guy's like, all right, well, I'll lock down my defense as hard as it can be now. You're never going to put a dent on me. And Luck is like, it looks like he's almost like a mile away. He's a real long distance away. And he says, get faster. And we see 5 arrays behind him. And Skin Guy's like, what in the world? No, my skin negates your magic. There's no way that's gonna... And Luck zooms past using the spell True Lightning Magic, Ceranos. And he punches a hole straight through this guy, literally turned himself into a piercing spear of light. He's dead. He has to be dead. There's no way the Skin Guy can still be alive.
A lightning bolt shot through his torso. So
yeah. Then Luck says, thanks, that was fun.
Man, I'm so glad that Luck was able to complete that training that was set up so long ago. to master True Lightning. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it. I'm sick of Black Clover, so whatever.
I do kind of like this chapter. I like the visual specifically of Luck setting up the arrays and launching himself from like a mile away, and that like finishing blow. I think that's really cool. The whole you got to do arrays because they add to your like I just don't understand what it's meant to really accomplish. It feels like a weird complication to add into things that doesn't even pay off in this chapter. What did he tell the spells, like the magic, to do that's different from?
He told them to get him faster, Chris.
I guess maybe he just wrote faster over and over again, and eventually it worked.
I feel as though if this were in a series that had a better handle on its concepts and techniques and stuff, that this whole arrays thing would be given a much more intense explanation, and you would see like more complicated stuff come out of it. But the problem is that as is, there are so many ways that mages can do everything that I just don't really see the point of introducing a new mechanic, because like, well, okay, yeah, but I mean, I've seen a guy, use one type of magic to copy another form of magic, so you can always just do whatever anyway. So I do agree with you that I think that the fight itself was a fun little thing. And I do like the idea that I do like the sentiment that God just shared with Luck of like, just because we both use lightning magic, you specialize in using it in an entirely different way than I do. So there's no point in me trying to teach you how to do this thing that I do. You should make your own way of doing it. It's like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And it was like, all right, nice quick little fight, speed versus brawn, offense versus defense, cool, whatever. It's just the pace that Black Clover always sets for itself, where it's just like, here's a setup, paid it off, same chapter, boom, done. And it's like, I literally can't get invested, So, yeah, because the payoff happens right when the investment happens. So, all right. One Piece chapter 978, introducing the Toby Rappo. You'll never guess what happens in this chapter, Chris. The Toby Rappo get introduced. Gotcha.
Yep.
The invasion proceeds. The Straw Hats, the Samurai, the crews, they all get into Onigashima, which has very poor building layout. Are there sidewalks anywhere, basically? It seems like the buildings are on top of each other everywhere. It is kind of a cool thing because you can see where like the Wano and the Kaido designs have kind of like intruded on each other a bit. But yeah, they're in Kaido's lair. Kinemon says that there's nobody at alert, so that means that Kanjuro hasn't reported in yet. So our sneak attack is still possible. There's a bunch of guards that aren't really paying attention. Usopp shoots a sleep plant thing over and puts them all to sleep so that they can't raise an alarm. The samurai all sink their ships after disembarking. And he's like, yeah, on this mission, we have no return ships. Chopper and Usopp freak out a little bit, and Usopp's like, we don't need to do that to the Sunny, do we? And Renki's like, no!
I do like that.
And Jinbei says, I mean, come on, we can hide them if there's just a couple of ships, so just disembark it, it'll be fine. Also, I think it's very different to, have your specialized freaking galleon be sank as opposed to the things that Frankie whipped up over the course of a week. Yeah. So people proceed into Onigashima. Chopper observes that there is a gateway that has been set up by Kinemon, and as people pass through it, his devil fruit gives them, a cloak and horns so that they look like Animal Kingdom pirate soldiers.
Completely forgot that Kinemon has the devil fruit. Every time he reveals, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Looking forward to the time that he somehow eventually manages to weaponize it, because it's like, how do you...
Nick, he's going to transform everyone into hot fetish outfits that are upgrades of their samurai forms that gives them cooler weapons. It's called Urza Scarlet. Ever heard of her?
I'm sorry, I'm so uncultured.
I know.
So, Pokemon says that, like, if the garb should be removed or damaged, you will return to your original clothes. So, presumably, Luffy's not going to have a fight entirely in this weird horned form. Which is fine because I don't really like all of these different characters being in this aesthetic. It's kind of boring. So.
Yeah.
We cut to where
But
Kaido's
it does
forces
give
are...
the option for a cool moment where a character's like has a big reintroduction and they come out through smoke and they're in their original attire. That's gonna be dope as fuck. I can't wait for that. We're gonna see like a character going through the smoke, probably Sanji, and he's gonna be like, and he's gonna move his cigarette. And I just want Hunter again. I just want to do it. I'm a hunter. He kicks Giant Burr in the face.
So, Queen's forces have gathered. We get Queen there. And he does his whole big introduction where he's like, oh, if I get any thinner, I'll steal all your hearts. So I choose the way I am. I stay. And everyone shouts, funky. Oh, man. Queen, the big face, coming in to win the world title belt. Jeez. But then he kind of does a little bit of a, hey, remember this thing that we established a long time ago that you forgot about because it took place like before the flashback involving Odin? Yeah, so there's the waiters, there's the pleasures, there's the gifters, then among the gifters there's the headliners. There you go. Those are how the different forces are gathered up. And then there's the Toby Rappo on top of all of them, and they're just like, we're not participating in your shout along thing. And Queen's like, they always ignore me, whatever. And also he introduces like, hey, then there's Orochi's forces, there's the samurai, there's the ninja, and there's Big Mom's children too are going to be joining us. And then finally we cut over to where the Toby Rappo are, and they are speaking amongst themselves. We get some shots of their different close-ups of their different features. So, like X-Drake is there and he's got his, his weird eye patch kind of thing. And, they're just kind of like talking amongst themselves. They're not really saying anything important. So I'll skip over that and just say that the 6 members of the Toby Rappo are X-Drake and Page One, who we already knew about. A horn, well, who knows if anyone actually has natural horns among these people. A girl with a weird face mask thing named Ulti, a guy with a helmet named Who's Who.
Fuck yeah. That's why I love One Piece. There's a character named Who's Who, and I'm going to remember that name so much easier than I am anyone else.
There's a large woman named Black Maria, and then there is a fish man named Sasaki.
Definitely looks like a fish man. She looks to be a giant almost, depending on the scale of how far down she goes, basically. This is a super cool group. I'm really excited. They all have some pretty cool designs. I'm kind of hoping they're not a disappointment, like I think a couple of the previous villain groups have been.
Now bring out the real Toby Rappo.
Less like that, and more like... I hope this is kind of a return to form of like the CP9 and we get really cool fights out of these characters against characters we really care about. My one concern is there's a shit ton of people in this fight, like on the good guy's side.
That was the first reaction that I had, was like, oh, more characters. Which, when I thought about it, it's kind of necessary because there's all these different characters on the protagonist side, and there's not a lot of people to match them up against on Orochi and Kaido's side. So I guess it's kind of necessary to introduce more people for the Straw Hats and fucking everyone else to have fights with.
There's a lot, because you have to consider we were introduced right now to 6 characters who are all pretty big. There's a possibility that X-Drake's not actually evil. I thought there was a clue that we got recently that he might still actually be aligned with the Marines, but I might be forgetting something. Everything blends together. But we have these 6 characters. You have King, Queen, and Jack. You have Kaido himself. Big Mom's there. Big Mom brought a bunch of kids. Like, it's a lot of people to have in this group, and it's going to be interesting seeing how many of these ones are relevant, essentially. So we'll see. There's a lot. I'll be more curious to see how this all kind of lines up. I think the one thing to note is the waiters, pleasures, gifters, and headliners thing I think is it's a good reminder that there's scales to this. I don't think those characters are going to be particularly notable. I think the headliners, if I'm not mistaken, a couple headliners we saw were like super early on with like Rummy and Hold'em. Like I think those were headliners if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's quite a few of these characters that we're not going to really deal with them.
Well, I guess we'll find out, Chris, and we'll be done with the Wano arc in about 3 years. So,
oof, man, yeah. All right, it's a lot.
Yeah, that is gonna do it for Weekly Manga recap, guys. So let us say what our favorites of this week were. Favorite chapter and MVP, Chris.
I give my favorite chapter to. I give it to Chainsaw Man. I think there were some strong chapters this week. But I don't think there are any that like blew me away. But Chainsaw Man was pretty dope.
All right.
Oh, also, I forgot to note, we do see Oppo for like the first fucking time in this chapter of One Piece, which I just want to note. I thought that was really weird that he got like a really small, like he didn't even get like a focus on. It just looked like he was DJing. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought that was Oppo. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna give mine to We Never Learn. I really like this stuff involving Segijo because, you know, it was unexpected that it took this direction. I was not thinking that, you know, a month and a half ago when it was like, oh, we're gonna get an Ogato arc, I don't think that anything involving Segijo was going to go into her troubled home life. But hey, it's nice to get that depth for her, and it was a pretty emotional chapter by the end of it. So,
yeah. I'm going to give my character of the week to Sekijo. I think she had a really strong focus. I'm a lot more interested into the character, and very cool, I think.
I'm going to make my MVP Present Mike because there was no single character this week who gave me more of a oh fuck moment, because he destroys the vat that Shigaraki's in, and then he just fucking punches Ichiko in the face, which was highly unexpected. So, yeah, very shallow reasons, but I gotta go with it. So,
all right. The audience has a tie, actually. Chainsaw Man,
a tie.
And Spy Family are the chapters of the week, and Sekijo and Kwanji are the characters of the week. So
a lot of people very high on Chainsaw Man this week. Then, yeah,
absolutely.
And hey, Activision didn't win. Can you
believe
it?
Yeah, it's shocking.
That is going to do it, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show on Wednesday evenings, somewhere between 7:30 and 8 p.m. You can check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. We do the live recordings on twitch.tv/RoloC if you feel like watching the video recordings and stuff. You can join our Discord server if you want to do all sorts of, reaction things like participate in the audience polls each week on favorite chapter and MVP, leave suggestions for us to talk about, and you can also check all the things that are kept track of by Ninja X3i. Very helpful to us for those reasons. And there's also other sorts of things on the Discord, different discussions to participate in. There's a My Hero Academia role-playing server, for example. And just, general discussions about cool things. So hang out with people, talk. It's fun.
Yeah, it's good.
Special thanks to Steve Bannon, our title artist, to Infamous Planet for making the frame for the Twitch stream of the podcast, and to Winston Cheddar and Milo Jack Stillitz for making the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. And that should be it.
Yes. All right. We did it, guys. Let's head on out.